Chapter 657. Oriton clenched his teeth and cooked another piece of meat. He did not eat it himself and just placed it in Gu Mingming's bowl. Then he looked at Leah with a blank expression and said, "You don't rely on your looks to make a living, you rely on your cheap cough." Gu Mingming choked on Oriton's words and almost spat out the meat she had just swallowed. Previously, Oriton had also called Leah a despicable with a straight face. A knife-wielding hero. Gu Mingming thought that Leah would be angry and drag Oriton to a duel to clear his name. In the end, this guy turned his head in an extremely coquettish manner and looked at her with a face full of grievance. He said like a pet dog, "Ming, he bullied me." The corners of Gu Mingming's mouth twitched. Not knowing whether to laugh or cry, she asked, "So, you want me to beat him up for you?" Leah looked at Gu Mingming seriously, then nodded his head resolutely. Yes, he nodded. Gu Mingming held her forehead and forced herself to raise her arm. "My limbs are weak now." Leah pulled Gu Mingming into his arms and kissed her little face lightly. His bewitching red lips inched closer and he licked the meat juice on the side of Gu Mingming's lips, before retracting his tongue back into his mouth. Then he moved his thin lips close to her ear and muttered softly, "The way you eat is too alluring, I don't want others to see it. In the future, let's not let Oriton share meals with us, all right?" Gu Mingming was speechless. Green veins popped up on Oriton's forehead as he glared at Leah, looking like he was about to charge forward and fight Leah to the death. What kind of joke was this? Snatching food from the tiger's mouth. But Leah didn't mind. He glanced sideways at Oriton and chuckled. "Praise me or else. Once Mingming opens her mouth, there's no turning back. A hot pot, barbecue, stewed pork knuckle. I wonder what delicacies Mingming will bring later. If I can't eat them, won't you regret it?" Oriton clenched his teeth and fiercely squeezed out a sentence from between his teeth. "You win." Leah chuckled, then looked at Oriton with an evil expression. "You're quite tactful, aren't you? Since you've already submitted, I'll be magnanimous and not stoop to pettiness. I won't let Mingming forbid you from coming to our house to eat." Oriton really could not stand Lee's smug look, so he turned his face to the side and stretched out his bowl. "Give me the meat." Leah snorted arrogantly, then quickly scooped up all the meat from the pot and placed it into Gu Mingming's bowl. "You are not even my female, and you still want me to take care of you? Don't you have any shame?" On Oriton's forehead, there was a thick and large tick mark. Damn it, being scolded as shameless by a shameless person was so frustrating. Gu Mingming chuckled. She picked up a large piece of meat from her bowl and placed it in Oriton's bowl. "Stop fooling around. Hurry and eat." Oriton looked at the meat in his bowl, and his expression became a little better. He responded with a and picked up the meat with his chopsticks and sent it into his mouth. Then, the meat was snatched away from his mouth. A long, wretched face appeared in front of him, chewing the piece of meat that was supposed to be in his mouth with great relish. He even purposely made chewing noises. "If a tiger doesn't roar, do you really think I'm a Hello Kitty?" Oriton leaped up and chased after Leah to attack. Leah dodged left and right, but did not really retaliate. He just fooled around. Elvis sat beside Gu Mingming, holding the bowl and chopsticks that Leah had stuffed into his arms. He picked up a piece of meat that was just the right temperature and sent it into Gu Mingming's mouth. Seeing her helpless smile, his gaze also softened. Luckily, in this house, there was still Leah who knew how to divert her attention and make her happy. She smiled again. "How nice. Aside from the topic, I saw the comments from my babies. They were all talking about Gu Mingming's recent emotional problems. Don't worry, this is a serious and joyful article, not a heavy one." Gu Mingming was just not used to the sudden addition of over 1,000 years of memories because Snake had just died. She would slowly get better. Besides, Cole, that sly fox, was quite annoying. In comparison, the previous Nina was just trash and could not be compared at all. Sigh. The author had already spoken, which meant that today's update had ended. Chapter 658. What caused Oriton and Lee's quarrel to end was Burke, who was being supported by Kanwu and Jiaoyu as they walked closer. Huda carried Qixin in his arms and walked in front of Gu Mingming. He looked at Gu Mingming with his clear and bright eyes and asked, Mummy, can we invite Kanwa's master for a meal? Master? Gu Mengmeng frowned and asked. Kanwa walked in front of Gu Mengmeng, treating Elvis, who was sitting beside Gu Mengmeng as though he was invisible. Kanwa's eyes, which were 80% similar to Elvis's, carried a stubbornness that did not belong to his age. He said, Master Burke was injured while trying to save me, so he is temporarily unable to hunt. I feel that I should at least be able to afford his food before he recovers, but the current me is still too weak. Mom, can you allow Master Borg to eat with us for a while? Gu Mengmeng placed her hand lightly on Kanwa's head and rubbed it gently. It's a good character to be grateful. Mummy will definitely support you. Kanwa pounced into Gu Mengmeng's arms and hugged Gu Mengmeng's neck tightly with his little hands. He pressed his chubby little face against Gu Mengmeng's and mumbled for a while before saying, Mummy, thank you. Gu Mengmeng chuckled and hugged her awkward son back. She looked up at the pale-faced Burke and said, Sit, let's eat together. Burke took a step forward, but Leah stood in front of him and said coldly, I remember I have already paid you. Burke's gaze was filled with a sense of inferiority. Of course he knew the difference between him and Leah, not to mention Elvis who was sitting beside Gu Mengmeng. He also knew that it was not good to be greedy, so when Gu Mengmeng asked him to follow them to Saint Nazaire, he almost wanted to agree without caring about anything else. However, during the days in Sauder, he gradually understood what kind of person Cole was who had guided him to Gu Mengmeng's side. He did not know what kind of role he was playing in Cole's chessboard. He was extremely afraid that he would become a chess piece to hurt Gu Mengmeng. So he chose to stay away from her and watched her leave. But he couldn't control his heart. He desperately wanted to get closer to her. Just a little bit would do. Not knowing what tricks Cole would play on her, he was really worried about her safety. That was why he had come. He had quietly followed behind the group and watched them from afar. They were so far away that they could only see the sesame-sized shadow of the last person in the group. Only then would they not be discovered. Until he noticed the stray beast's attack, his brain almost lost control. Even though he knew how dangerous the stray beasts were, he still charged over without hesitation. Seeing Kanwa being attacked by two stray beasts, the combination of their moves was almost fatal. He did not have Elvis's ability and could not counter this attack. The only way was to block it for him. He knew that even he would die if he were to take this attack head-on. But all she could think of was Gu Mengmeng's sad and helpless gaze as she hugged Qixuan. She already had a son whose life or death was unknown. She couldn't have another one. As long as she could be well, she would let him die for Kanwu. Chapter 659. Jiaoyu took 2 steps forward and gently tugged on Li's beastskin skirt. He looked up at Leah with a pair of eyes that was extremely similar to Gu Mengmeng's. If you chase Burke away, Kanwu will definitely starve with him. As brothers, we will advance and retreat together with Kanwu. If all 4 sons have nothing to eat at the same time, who do you think will feel heartache? Leah raised his brows and looked down at Jiaoyu with a smile. Are you threatening me? Jiaoyu did not deny it. He just looked up at Leah. I heard that you are always showing off, saying that mother is always biased towards you. Leah chuckled and responded with a sounding a little proud. Jiaoyu said, Then what if the 4 of us hug mother and cry together? If we say that you are bullying us, who do you think mother will be biased towards? Li's eyelids twitched. He stared at Jiaoyu with a dangerous gaze. Rascal, you are playing with fire. Jiaoyu shrugged. Stop pretending. You can't do anything to my eyes. Leah gritted his teeth. He thought he had put on a good disguise. In the end, this rascal had grasped his weakness. Yes, he could not harden his heart to do anything when facing this pair of eyes that looked exactly like Qing Mengmeng's. Jiaoyu continued. Let Burke stay for a meal. Otherwise, I will tell mother that you beat us up. Leah raised his brows. Was he trying to create an injustice? Since when did he beat them up? Jiaoyu said, Also, you and Auntie Mandy were exchanging flirtatious glances. Li's eyes widened. He instantly understood Jiaoyu's intentions. Gu Mengmeng's hearing was different from before. She could hear every single word that this rascal was saying. Jiaoyu raised his little face and smiled brightly. but there was a small evil glint in his eyes. You even called out a female's name when you were asleep, something Jillian. The veins on Lee's forehead twitched. This little wolf cub was really good at making up lies. Who could he not mention? Why did he have to mention Jillian, the snow fox that he was engaged to? Jiaoyu wanted to say more, but Leah covered his mouth and gave in with a black face. Eat, let him eat, all right? If you keep lying, your mother is going to explode. Jiaoyu smiled triumphantly and gently slapped Lee's wrist away. He turned around and walked back. After taking 2 steps, he turned back and lightly patted Lee's shoulder. With a sincere and earnest look, he said, I am also doing this for my brother. I have no choice. You don't have to take it to heart. In any case, you wouldn't dare to kill me. Also, your mother is going to explode. Your whole tribe is going to explode. With that, Jiaoyu sighed maturely and walked back to Burke's side. He held onto one of his arms and said, My mother's males don't have normal brains. Don't bother with lunatics. Since my mom said you can stay for dinner, you can eat without worry. After all, my mother is the one who calls the shots in this family. Kanwu stood up from Gu Mingming's arms. He hesitated for a moment before kissing Gu Mingming on the cheek. Without saying a word, he walked to the other side of Burke and sat beside the fire with Jiaoyu on Burke's left and right. Huda handed Qixin over to Jiaoyu. Then he went to fetch the bowls and chopsticks. He scooped up some meat from the pot and filled 4 small bowls. He passed them to his brothers and Burke respectively. Then he carried Qixin back into his arms. All right, let's eat. Aside from the topic. Chapter 660. The atmosphere during this meal was rather strange. Oriton glared at Leah, looking as if he had a poker face and was unable to satisfy his craving. Leah and Elvis's sharp gazes could not wait to poke Burke's body into a honeycomb coal, chewing mouthfuls as if it was Burke's bones instead of meat. Burke and the 3 little ones ate quietly, trying their best to control their eyes, but still could not help but stare at Gu Mingming. Gu Mingming face-bombed, wishing that her observation skills were not so sharp. She just wanted to have a good meal. Reaching out to hug Kanwu, Gu Mingming realized that the meat in his bowl was barely touched, so she asked with concern, Why aren't you eating? Kanwu lowered his head and stared at the meat in his bowl, replying, Master Burke was invited back by me, so my portion is for Master Burke to eat. Gu Mingming frowned, feeling a little heartache. She knew that Elvis's education was too forceful, causing a lot of psychological pressure on this child. But she could not say that Elvis was wrong in front of the child, so she could only comfort him, Silly son, Burke saved you, so he is our family's benefactor. Even if you did not invite him back, Mummy will not watch him starve. So you don't have to save your own food for him, just eat obediently, all right? Kanwu looked up at Gu Mingming, but lowered his head again. Shaking his little head, he said, No, I will repay my own kindness. Gu Mingming did not miss the way Kanwu glanced at Elvis from the corner of his eyes when he said that. Gu Mingming's heart ached for her son, and even the way she looked at Elvis was a little sad. Elvis sighed as if he was admitting defeat, but did not say anything else. Kanwu looked up at Gu Mingming, saying with an extremely serious face, Mummy, I have Burke as my master, he will teach me how to become stronger. From tomorrow onwards, we will start practicing from hunting. So don't worry, I can take responsibility for my own decision. How could a child who was not even a year old talk about taking responsibility? It made one's heart ache to hear it. Gu Mingming hugged her son into her arms, then gave half of the meat in her bowl to Kanwu, saying, How about this? You give your portion to Burke, Mummy will give you half of her portion. How about this? Kanwu shook his head and poured the meat back into Gu Mingming's bowl. He looked at Gu Mingming with a clear and determined gaze and said, I'm a male beast, how can I snatch a female's food? Mom, you're making me feel useless. Gu Mingming bit her lower lip. She really wanted to borrow a cell phone to surf the internet and post a thread asking, what to do if the child is too headstrong? Which family's son entered the rebellious phase at the age of 1? Please enlighten me. I'm waiting online. It's urgent. Elvis slowly stood up and walked to Gu Mingming's side. He kicked Kanwu to the ground before lifting up the bowl and directly pouring the meat into his mouth. His large hand covered Kanwu's mouth like a pair of metal pincers. "Just eat when I ask you to, don't make my wife worry." Kanwu's eyes were red, but he stubbornly refused to cry. He swallowed the meat in his mouth without even chewing it. When Gu Mengmeng pushed Elvis away and hugged Kanwu, he had already swallowed the food in his mouth. Elvis placed the empty bowl down for her to see and said gently, "All right, he has eaten. Don't worry." Chapter 661. Elvis was speechless from the scolding. He looked at the empty bowl and did not know what to do. Giving the wolf pups meat was also wrong? Kanwu bit his lower lip and forcibly held back his tears. He said, "Mummy, don't be angry. The weak do not have the right to resist. One day, I will become stronger and never let you worry about me again." With that, he suddenly stood up and ran out. Gu Mengmeng wanted to chase after him but fell to the side the moment she stood up. Luckily, Elvis was not far away and caught Gu Mengmeng. Gu Mengmeng wanted to push Elvis away, but after hearing that groan, she looked to the side and saw that Elvis's head was covered in fine beads of sweat. She recalled that he still had injuries that had not healed because of her loss of control. It was already so difficult for him to stand and walk, it must be even more difficult for her to catch a free fall. Gu Mengmeng could only watch worriedly as Kanwu ran far away. She bit her lower lip and could not say a word. Burke stood up with Jiaoyu's help and walked to Gu Mengmeng's side. Standing shoulder to shoulder with her, he said, "Don't worry, I will take care of him." Gu Mengmeng looked to the side at Burke. Now, there was no better way. "Sorry to trouble you." Burke chuckled. "If you had not unleashed your king's aura, I would definitely not have been able to withstand the second blow from those two stray beasts. So, actually you saved my life. To repay you, taking care of Kanwu is not a big deal. Is a very sensible child." With that, Burke walked in the direction where Kanwu had disappeared. Huda carried Qixin and walked to Gu Mengmeng. He raised his little face and said, "Mummy, your body is too weak. You need to rest and recuperate. I will help you look after your brothers and not let them cause any trouble. So, don't worry too much, all right?" Gu Mengmeng rubbed Huda's little head. Her heart was filled with guilt. If she had taken good care of her own sons back then and not let them experience that kidnapping and not let them witness her being tortured to death by Ellie, would they not have matured so early? Being forced to grow up was a psychological trauma. But she did not know how to make up for it. Huda looked at Elvis, then at Leah. He sighed and did not say anything. He just shook his head and walked away. The veins on Elvis's forehead twitched. He was going against the heavens. It was only until Burke and the three precocious kids had disappeared that Gu Mengmeng retracted her gaze and looked at Elvis. "How badly are you injured? Don't lie to me. Tell me the truth." Elvis's heart skipped a beat. He thought that Leah and Oriton's banter had already settled this matter and Gu Mengmeng would not pursue the matter further. Frowning, Elvis started to dislike those wolf cubs even more. If Kanwu had not suddenly run away, causing Gu Mengmeng to almost lose her balance after getting up to chase after him, he would not have rushed over to hug Gu Mengmeng, causing pressure on his wound and causing Qing Mengmeng to worry. Chapter 662. Gu Mengmeng's heart skipped a beat as she frowned at Elvis. So serious? Elvis glared at Leah before caressing Gu Mengmeng's little face gently. "I'm a 5th-level beast. Although he is not as good as you, he is still an outstanding figure. Don't listen to Lee's bluff, aren't I standing right here?" Gu Mengmeng bit her lip and said, "Lie down over there." Elvis was taken aback by Gu Mengmeng's roar. Seeing the tears welling up in her eyes made him even more flustered and afraid than when she lost control and flew into a rage. "Don't be angry, ally. Lie down, okay?" Elvis walked to the spot Gu Mengmeng pointed at and laid down obediently. He looked at Gu Mengmeng carefully and said, "I'm lying down, do you want to come over?" Gu Mengmeng sniffed and allowed Leah to carry her back to Elvis's side. Leah sat cross-legged on the ground while Gu Mengmeng sat in his arms. Her waist was supported firmly by Lee's large tail and she nestled in Lee's arms without using any strength. "Why aren't you lying down properly when you're so badly injured?" Gu Mengmeng was angry. She was angry at him for not taking care of his own body, and even angrier at herself for injuring him to this extent. Elvis looked at Gu Mengmeng with a deep gaze and said, "I get flustered when I can't see you, so wherever you are, I will be." Silly wolf. Gu Mengmeng rubbed her eyes, then turned to look at Leah and asked, "What about you? Was he really all right? You're not lying? I clearly saw those two stray beasts working together to kill you." Leah purposely said sourly, "You only remembered to care about me now? Tis. I thought I was an unloved one. You wouldn't care even if I died." Gu Mengmeng glared at Leah with a stern expression. "Don't try to bluff your way out of this. Tell me the truth." Leah immediately kept his playful expression and shifted his gaze away timidly. He then secretly peeked at Gu Mengmeng from the corner of his eyes and said guiltily, "My injuries are not as serious as Elvis's. I'm almost recovered." "Really?" Gu Mengmeng was skeptical. The two males in her family were too good at flaunting their superiority, always putting up a facade in front of her. Leah cleared his throat and said, "Most of my injuries are external injuries caused by those stray beasts. This kind of injury was common in the past. It didn't hurt much, and he was used to it. I'll be fine in at most 3 to 5 days." Gu Mengmeng reached out and poked Lee's body a few times. Seeing that he was really fine, she heaved a sigh of relief. "Then what about Elvis? Is it good for us to just wait for him like this?" Leah nodded. "Don't worry, the most dangerous period is over. Now that he can stand, walk and talk, it proves that he won't die." Actually, Leah didn't say anything. In order to recall Gu Mengmeng's consciousness and prevent her from being smashed into minced meat by the explosive force that was too much for her body to handle, Elvis endured the intense pain and walked to Gu Mengmeng's side. Not only were his bones injured, his organs were also injured. If Gu Mengmeng had held back her pressure a second later, Elvis's heart would have shattered into pieces. By then, he might not even have a complete corpse. Although he had the recovery ability of a 5th-level beast, Elvis's injuries were too severe. He did not agree with Elvis pretending to be fine in front of Gu Mengmeng from the start and told him to rest well, but he did not listen and insisted on staying by Gu Mengmeng's side to prove that he was fine and not make her feel guilty. What was the result? Chapter 663. Did he still not understand until now? He was no longer the insignificant Elvis who would appear in front of Gu Mengmeng with an injured leg, and she would not even question him about how he was injured. Now she cared about him. Even the slightest bit of abnormality could not be hidden from her eyes. Knowing that Elvis's life was not in danger, Gu Mengmeng felt much more at ease. Turning back, she saw Oriton scooping meat from the pot with his chopsticks. Oriton met Gu Mengmeng's gaze and felt a moment of awkwardness. His gaze turned away stiffly and his hands maintained the posture of scooping meat from the pot. His face was expressionless, but it gave off an awkward atmosphere. Gu Mengmeng could not help chuckling. "Oriton, what about you? Are your injuries serious?" Oriton cleared his throat and kept his chopsticks. He sat upright and still, looking at Gu Mengmeng. Maintaining his usual poker face, he said calmly, "To me, fighting with stray beasts is a common occurrence. There is a limit to how much they can hurt me. So my injuries are slightly lighter than Lee's. It's not serious." Gu Mengmeng retracted her gaze and stared closely at her own knees. After hesitating for a long time, she slowly opened her mouth. "What about the others? Are they all right?" Leah knew that some things could not be hidden. After 2 days of rest, when they were ready to set off again, Gu Mengmeng would be able to tell how many people were missing from the group. Pulling Gu Mengmeng into his arms, he gently propped his chin on the top of her head. No tribe dares to say that they could escape unscathed from a battle with stray beasts. Even the previous messenger of the beast deity had some victories and some losses, but there was never a complete victory. So, Gu Mengmeng clenched her fists tightly and frowned. Her throat was tight, causing her voice to be dry and hoarse. "How many died in the hands of the stray beasts? And how many died in my hands?" Leah wanted to say that they all died in the hands of the stray beasts, but could such a lie fool Gu Mengmeng now? Leah held onto Gu Mengmeng's shoulders. "You could not control your emotions because you saw me in danger. So their deaths are not because of you, but because of me. I will become stronger, strong enough to protect myself and my people. I won't let you lose control because of me again. So, you're not allowed to take these responsibilities on yourself. Do you hear me? Gu Mingming's brows were still tightly furrowed. She looked straight into Li's eyes and said, "Tell me how much." Leah hugged Gu Mengmeng in his arms, his heart aching for her. He sighed and said, 72 people died in the battle, 90, beast pressure. Gu Mingming's body went limp and she fell into Li's arms. Most of these people had joined Saint Nazir during Sauter's beauty pageant. She had clearly promised to lead them to a good life, but before their good days came, they died in her hands. Leah caressed Gu Mingming's back and said, "Mengmen, listen to me. In the beast world, the death of males was a very common thing. This was the survival of the fittest, the inevitable outcome of natural selection. It's the male's incompetence if they can't protect themselves. This is not your fault." Chapter 664. Leah and Elvis exchanged glances and heaved a sigh of relief. Gu Mengmeng continued, 162 males. I'm afraid every family will suffer some losses. Arrange for the single males to protect and take care of the females with reduced family members to ensure that the females' quality of life doesn't drop and that there are no loopholes in their safety. Leah threw Oriton a look, and Oriton, who was sending a piece of meat into his mouth, lowered his head and sighed, "Got it, I'll go arrange it." After taking 2 steps, Oriton turned back and looked at Gu Mingming's expression. He pressed his lips into a straight line, and it was obvious that, "I have something to say but I don't know if I should say it," was written on his face. Gu Mingming looked up and asked, "What's the matter?" "Just say it." Oriton cleared his throat and said with a serious expression, "I still want to share dinner tonight. Is roasted meat okay?" Gu Mingming, under such circumstances, Oriton was actually concerned about dinner. Leah was really right. In this beast world, everyone seemed to be so used to the death of males that they were numb to it. Leah made a tisk sound and looked at Oriton. "Roast what meat? Can't you see that my Gu Mengmeng is not in a good mood? If you don't want to share dinner tonight, you can settle it yourself in the wild." Oriton frowned and looked at Leah with an especially unfriendly gaze. That was a grudge from a glutton. Gu Mengmeng waved her hands and said, "Call the females over too. Let's roast meat together tonight and let them clearly see that I'm still alive. Then they will feel more at ease." Oriton's expression softened a little and he ignored Leah and left directly. After Oriton left, there was only Gu Mengmeng and her family left. Leah placed Gu Mengmeng back into the tree hole and then knelt by her feet. His furry large tail landed gently in her arms and covered her like a warm blanket. His elbows propped on the sides of the tree hole and he looked up at Gu Mingming's little face, smiling without saying a word. Gu Mingming looked back at Leah and asked, "What's wrong? Why are you looking at me like that?" Leah chuckled and said, "I feel extremely complicated now. I'm proud and disappointed at the same time. What should I do?" Gu Mingmeng looked at Leah in confusion, waiting for him to continue. Leah gently caressed Gu Mingmeng's little face and said, "You are becoming stronger and stronger. You have thought through many things very clearly, and this is a good growth trend. It means that you will no longer be trapped in a pitch-black sadness in the future. This is a good thing. I should be happy, and I should be proud of your growth. But this also means that you need Elvis and me to accompany and comfort you for one less thing. Your reliance on us will also decrease. My heart is empty. I'm afraid that one day, you won't need us anymore." Gu Mingmeng did not know whether to laugh or cry at Li's worry. This feeling of wanting him to be independent yet afraid of losing his reliance, wasn't this the mentality of a parent sending their child to kindergarten for the first time? Pulling Li's hand, Gu Mingmeng looked at Elvis. His expression told her that he also had the same worries. What a tacit understanding. Chapter 665. Leah kissed Gu Mingmeng's forehead and Elvis tightened his grip on her hand. Gu Mingmeng heaved a sigh of relief and turned to look at Leah, asking, "Can you tell me now?" What does using a fake to fight another fake mean? Leah was stunned for half a second before he smiled and rubbed Gu Mingming's little head, saying, I really can't hide it from you. Gu Mingming did not say anything, but her instincts told her that everything had something to do with Cole. Leah rested his chin on Gu Mingming's little head and said tirelessly, "Do you remember what I told you on the day I exiled Cole?" Gu Mingming nodded. Her memory was frighteningly good now, and it was not easy for her to forget. Leah chuckled and said casually, as if he was narrating a story that had nothing to do with him, "During the few years I was exiled, I hated Cole to the core. But the disparity in our abilities made me unable to take revenge. Getting close to Cole would only make me get played around by him again. If I don't want to become a clown that he can fool around with, the only way is to understand him and surpass him." Gu Mingming frowned. She did not really care much about the relationship between siblings, but they were still a family after all. She still could not understand why Cole schemed to harm Leah. Killing someone was just a matter of nodding one's head to the ground. With Cole's abilities, it was not difficult for him to kill Leah, but he did not do so. Instead, he used the cruelest methods to torture Lee's heart and made him suffer more than death. Leah suddenly chuckled and turned to look at Elvis, saying, so magical. Now when I mention Cole, I actually no longer feel angry and agitated to the point of wanting to kill someone. I even don't feel anything." Elvis chuckled and said, "Congratulations, you finally broke free from Cole's torment. Hatred is no longer your pillar of support in life." Leah raised his brows and said, "Yeah, same to you." Gu Mingming held her forehead and looked coldly at the two fellows who did not speak human language. She said, "Do I have to push you two to the wedding ceremony after the same?" Leah was taken aback for a moment before looking at Gu Mingming ambiguously, saying, Are you lonely? You want to see that to relieve yourself?" For a moment, Gu Mingming did not understand what Leah was up to. She instinctively moved backwards, but Leah leaned forward and pressed half of his body on top of Gu Mingming. His slender and bony hand locked her little hand above her head, while his other hand hooked her chin. He whispered in her ear, "My first time is reserved for you. How can I give it to Elvis? No matter how much you want to see, at least, let me taste your sweetness first, Gu Mingming felt a gust of steam coming out from her ears, just like the white smoke spewing out from a steam train after the whistle sounded. She wriggled her body a couple of times and said with a flushed face, "Who wants to see?" Leah pulled away a little and looked at Gu Mingming slyly. He slid his finger across his lips and licked it with the tip of his tongue. His expression was seductive and seductive, just like poppies blooming in the night, making one hold their breath. "You really don't want to see it? If you ask, maybe I'll be willing to cooperate?" Chapter 666. Leah spread out his hands and shrugged. He smiled evilly. "See, who is the one who is willing to do anything for you?" Gu Mingming held her forehead. She felt that she was almost led into a ditch by Leah again. If Elvis had not spoken up in time to shatter this rotten image, she would have had a nosebleed from Lee's slutty look. She placed one hand on Lee's shoulder and the other on her forehead. She looked up and smiled coldly. "Don't confuse me. Tell me the main point." Leah nodded nonchalantly. Actually, he was only fooling around because he was afraid that the story would be too heavy and would cause Gu Mingming to feel depressed. If it was possible, he did not want to talk about those unpleasant and beautiful things. He hoped that his Gu Mingming would only see a fairy tale-like world. However, he still couldn't do it with his current strength. Cole is the most talented among this generation in the Snow Fox clan. Be it in terms of intelligence or strength, he is the cream of the crop. It's a pity that his status is not enough to support his ambition. Big Brother and I are the stumbling blocks on his path to success. And, compared to Big Brother, he seems to hate me more. Gu Mingming frowned. "But didn't you say that you had a good relationship with Cole when you were young?" Leah smiled bitterly. There was a hint of helplessness in his eyes. "Yes, I thought I was good. I thought that second brother doted on me a lot. But, do you think that what you think is what you think?" Gu Mingming was confused by Lee's words. "So many think." After a while, she said, Cole had an ulterior motive for treating you so well right from the start? Leah leaned back and leaned against the side of the tree hole. He looked up at the sky with a lazy expression. He said nonchalantly, "A child blessed by the beast deity only appears once every few hundred years. And coincidentally, it's me." Gu Mengmeng blinked her eyes at Leah. "Blessed by the beast deity? How did he bless you? Why can't I tell it all?" Leah swayed his tail and said, "You've seen quite a number of fox tails in solder. Did you notice any difference between them and me?" Gu Mengmeng recalled carefully and stared at Lee's tail for a while. "I didn't see anything." Leah squinted his eyes and leaned closer to Gu Mengmeng. Looking slightly sullen, he said, "I'm not special in your eyes, am I?" Gu Mengmeng was really wronged on this point. Firstly, she did not look carefully at other people's tails, and secondly, who the hell could tell the difference between every fox's tail? Leah kissed Gu Mengmeng's lips heavily, biting them twice as a punishment. He only released her when he tasted blood on his lips. He leaned back and continued, "Other snow foxes will have some silver fur in their tails. When they walk in the snow, it will produce an effect similar to the refraction of sunlight. As for my tail, it was pure white, without a single stray hair. This is also the reason why I'm the only one who can use the art of deduction, even though it's been passed down from generation to generation among witch doctors. What was the difference between white and silver?" Forgive Gu Mengmeng for not being very sensitive to colors. Unless the color difference was as clear as Elvis's and Lee's black and white, she really could not tell that there were a few strands of silver fur in the pure white tail. Clearing her throat, Gu Mengmeng asked, "The art of deduction you guys use, your tails to push? Aside from the topic, come on, everybody, repeat after me. Do you think that what you think is what you think? Is there anyone who is tongue-tied? Ha! That's right, it's time to say goodbye to everyone again." Chapter 667. Leah shook his head and said, "Only pure white snow foxes can sense the deity's decree and understand the hidden message in the deduction technique. As for the others, even if they learn the deduction technique, they can't decipher anything." Gu Mengmeng rolled her eyes at the mention of the beast deity. She was unhappy and mumbled, "He doesn't look very reliable. Why do you still trust him so much?" Leah rubbed Gu Mengmeng's little head and said, "When I was being exiled by Cole and was struggling with hatred, I had also asked myself this question. Am I really a child blessed by the beast deity? Then why do I have to suffer like this? No, he guided me to meet you. Only then did I understand that he really cared for me. He didn't allow me to waste my good luck anywhere else, just to accumulate enough good luck to meet you and accompany you. Compared to you, those things in the past are not even worth mentioning." Elvis had also said something similar. Gu Mengmeng turned to look at Elvis with a deep gaze. The two males in her family always used the phrase, "not worth mentioning," to downplay the pain of the past. But why would she believe them? How many times had they risked their lives to exchange the phrase, "not worth mentioning"? Sighing softly, Gu Mengmeng held Lee's hand and looked at him gently. She said, "A child blessed by the beast deity received the protection and preferential treatment of the entire tribe, so Cole was jealous, right?" Leah nodded his head in approval and chuckled as if it was someone else's story. He said, "Yes, if he wanted to be the tribe leader, he could have just killed my eldest brother. But even if he killed me, he couldn't replace me. On the day I was exiled, I asked him why he wanted to harm me, and he said, 'Because you are the ninth highness. Can't be replaced, but can be destroyed.' That's probably what he meant." Gu Mengmeng's heart ached for Leah. What could be more painful than being betrayed and framed by someone whom she had relied on wholeheartedly? But Leah was smiling casually. He kissed Gu Mengmeng's little face and said, "I was afraid that you would be like this, so I didn't want to tell you. It's all in the past, I don't care about it anymore." Gu Mengmeng pursed her lips and did not say a word. Don't care about it? If he had really forgotten about it, let it go, and let it go, why would he have created Saint Nazir? He even dared to plot against the messenger of the beast deity. As a witch doctor, he knew better than anyone else that plotting against the messenger of the beast deity was a great disrespect to the beast deity and would result in torture and punishment. But even so, he still did it without hesitation. How was this a sign that he had already let it go? Leah pinched Gu Mingming's little face and said, "I can't continue telling my story if you look at me with such a worried expression." Gu Mingming turned around and lay in Li's arms. She leaned her back against his chest and rested her head on his shoulder. She gently closed her eyes and said, "I won't look at you. You can speak." Leah kissed her hair and continued, "If I want to win Cole, I must first learn to think from his point of view." So I started to imitate his actions and guess his thoughts. Slowly, I started to forget how the original Leah was like. My actions were Cole's way of thinking. Strictly speaking, the current me is just a fake of Cole, an imitation. Gu Mingming chuckled and said, "So when I was tricked by Cole to solder previously, you said you were worried that I would fall in love with Cole, right?" Aside from the topic, the post, "My wife smells so good," from a friend on Twitter was still the same. PK in the middle was still popular. In her previous life, 7 years of sincerity had been wasted and she had died tragically. In this life, she had transformed into a gentle and lovely lady, a graceful and graceful lady. Although Mr. Chi had countless women around him, he had always left his pillow for her, his one and only lover, Su Wei. Someone asked her, what did she like about him? Answer: he dotes on me and loves me for a very long time. In order to get him, she tortured him in all sorts of ways. In order to get her, he recruited new men in bed. Snippet: Miss Su was curled up on the sofa reading a book when a certain man immediately snatched it over and said in all seriousness, "Reading books is useless. Only by making babies with me can we make the country strong." She glanced at him and said, "Are you very bored?" Chapter 668. Leah squinted his eyes and adjusted to the sunlight that scattered on his face. He looked sideways at Gu Mengmeng and touched her left ear gently with his fingers. He chuckled and said, "You had destroyed all my confidence at that time. And, from some aspects, Cole was indeed more outstanding than me. After all, I had always been imitating him. How could I walk in front of him by stepping on other people's footprints?" Her two males were extremely confident in other aspects, but they were as humble as dust when it came to relationships. Gu Mengmeng felt helpless and asked Leah, "Are you not afraid now?" Leah pulled Gu Mengmeng. Gu Mengmeng did not have much energy and did not want to resist, so she just let him pull her onto his chest like a rag doll and lay on top of him. Leah kissed Gu Mengmeng's earlobe lightly and said with a huff, "Do you know why I insisted on making Elvis your first partner?" Gu Mengmeng thought for a while and replied, "You were afraid that I would not accept Elvis after mating with me and you would not be able to fulfill your promise?" Leah shook his head and said, "You are not heartless towards Elvis. Moreover, with your soft-hearted and kind personality, if I had plotted it, the time you accepted him after we mated would be shorter than the time you accepted me." Gu Mengmeng thought about it and felt that it was true. She nodded her head in agreement and then asked, "Why is that?" Li's fingers caressed the snow fox mark on her ear gently and his gaze was misty as he said, "Because I know how selfish I am." Gu Mengmeng did not understand what Leah meant. Leah smiled bitterly and said, "If I was the first partner, even if I knew I could not protect you alone, I would rather drag you to death with me than to allow you to have a second male. But Elvis is different. He can give up everything for you and he can also defeat everything. Even if he had to grind his heart into pieces inch by inch, as long as you are happy, he would not say a word. It is the safest and most beneficial for you to have such a person as your first partner. The two of you must mate first so that he can suppress me in terms of strength. Only then can I be at your side with peace of mind. Because, when I can't control myself and go crazy from jealousy, there must be someone who can protect you from my madness." Leah made himself sound so evil, but Gu Mengmeng just laughed out loud. She poked Li's brows and said, "But you're so selfish, yet you gave up your position as the first partner just to be my insurance. So, I believe that no matter if it's you or Elvis, neither of you will hurt me." Leah allowed Gu Mengmeng's little hand to poke his forehead. Looking at her gentle and calm eyes, the corners of his lips curved upwards unknowingly. "Of course we won't hurt you, But we will hurt those males who try to get close to you. Gu Mingming chuckled and declined to comment. In her life, Leah and Elvis were enough. After the incident with Snake, she clearly knew that if she didn't want others to get the wrong information, she shouldn't show any kindness from the start. Turning a blind eye is sometimes a kind of mercy. Chapter 669. Yeah, I understand. Gu Mingming chuckled. Lee's words meant that she did not need to worry about Cole's schemes. He and Elvis would use all means to prevent Cole from getting close to her. Actually, this was probably protection. How awkward, did he have to make it sound so sour? You really understand? Leah asked doubtfully, what do you intend to do with Burke? Gu Mingming sighed. Kanwa seems to value this master quite a lot. Even Huda and Jiaoyu are very protective of him. I am afraid that my attitude is too tough and will make the children sad. The little wolves cannot be hurt anymore. Leah narrowed his eyes, emitting a dangerous aura. So you intend to let him use the little wolf cubs as a cover to wander around you? Thinking about it, it was quite annoying. Gu Mingming glanced at Elvis, who was lying on the ground, not daring to move, and said in a bad mood, isn't it all because of some people? Our son has already asked for guidance. Why are you acting so tsundere and still saying why? Tisk? Elvis wanted to explain, but after thinking about it, he swallowed it back. Leah looked at Elvis's bitter expression and could not help but laugh. With a gloating look, he said, some people just want to grind down Kanwa's arrogance and make Kanwa beg him a few more times, so that the little wolf pups can clearly see who is the boss in the family. But who would have thought that Kanwa would become Burke's disciple? Great, not only did he not manage to control his son, he even brought back a potential love rival. Heh, isn't this a double loss? Elvis did not dare to rebuke Gu Mingming, but that did not mean he would allow Leah to do whatever he wanted, so he said with a dark face, I heard that you have been teaching Jiaoyu for a long time. From today's situation, it seems to be quite effective. Leah almost bit his tongue. Thinking of Jiaoyu's behavior today, it really made one's teeth itch with hatred, but one could not do anything to him. Turning to look at Gu Mingming, he pinched her little nose in a punitive manner. It's all because you supported them that they became so arrogant and out of control. I'm afraid no one will be able to control them in the future. Thinking of her own sons, Gu Mingming's eyes shone with the radiance of motherly love. She rested her face on Lee's chest and said, the pupil surpasses the master, each generation is stronger than the previous one. The sunlight warmed her body and she was a little tired after a whole morning. She laid on her stomach and fell asleep. When she opened her eyes again, she was sleeping in Elvis's arms. Elvis sat boldly in the tree hole, as if it was not a tree hole, but a supreme throne. He was like the ruler of the night, looking down from above, insufferably arrogant. Gu Mingming nestled in his arms, looking especially petite and weak, giving off the vibe of King Zhou of Shang and his demon concubine Daji. There were 19 bonfires in front of them, with the biggest one on Gu Mingming's left and right. Leah and Oriton were working together to skewer the meat and place them on the clean leaves. Ian was on a branch above Gu Mingming's head, half sitting and half lying, looking a little unruly and carefree like a Lord Grim lying on the battlefield. But his face was still sickly, causing him to lack some of the aura and charm of a general. He looked more like a sickly crown prince who followed the army into battle, the kind that looked good but did not have to go to battle. Chapter 670. Elvis's two simple words successfully attracted everyone's attention. Instantly, other than the crackling sounds of the firewood, everyone was staring at Gu Mingming in silence, causing her to feel uneasy for no reason. It was just a nap. Was there a need for everyone in the tribe to watch? All right, let's eat. Elvis carried Gu Mingming and stood up, walking to the side of the bonfire before sitting down. Gu Mingming was a little worried. Your body has not recovered yet. Is it all right to carry me like this? Elvis raised his eyebrows, chuckling. It's just a small injury. After carrying you for an afternoon, I'm almost fully recovered. Gu Mingming rebuked, what's the use of carrying me? I'm not a medicine. Elvis played with Gu Mingming's hair, bringing it to his nose for a sniff, chuckling, "You're my life-saving elixir, there's nothing more effective than you." Gu Mengmeng did not reply. If not for the fact that there was no internet here, she would have suspected that Elvis had secretly read some weird web novel while she was asleep. She glanced at the surrounding bonfires, including her own. There were a total of 19. Every family had one bonfire, which meant that there were no female casualties in this battle. That's right, even if all the males in the family died, there were still unmated males who would automatically take over to protect the females. Unless all the males in the tribe died, the females would definitely be well protected. Gu Mengmeng inherited Elvis's eyesight. She could see extremely clearly in the firelight. Each and every familiar face, so calm that not a single trace of sadness could be seen. They were still instructing the males to eat this and that, do this and that. Gu Mengmeng felt a little weird. She had prepared herself to see how sad the females were tonight, before being tortured by guilt till they were covered in cuts and bruises, unable to go any further. She knew that it would definitely be very painful, but she also knew that it was a reasonable torture for her to endure. But she did not expect that these females did not even have the slightest bit of sadness, as if the person who died was a stranger they had never seen before, and not the partners who risked their lives for them and took good care of them. To a certain extent, this lessened Gu Mengmeng's guilt, but she felt another kind of sadness that she could not describe. Sandy's bonfire was the closest to Gu Mengmeng's, on the right side of the tree hole. Sandy sat with his back facing Gu Mengmeng, not turning his head at all. Huda and his brothers did not prepare to roast meat in Gu Mengmeng's fire pit. Instead, they sat beside Sandy's fire pit. Burke sat beside Kanwu. His gaze pierced through the flames and landed on Gu Mengmeng with a scorching heat, as if he could not control his longing for her. Leah held onto the roasted meat branch and snapped it into two. He laughed sinisterly. "That pair of eyes really makes me uncomfortable. I really want to dig them out." Gu Mengmeng waved her hands and sighed. "Forget it, the children know that you don't like him and have already brought him to Sandy's place for a free meal. Don't mind him. If he wants to watch, let him watch." Leah took 2 deep breaths, then walked to Gu Mengmeng's side and used his body to block Burke's line of sight. With a darkened face, he looked at Burke with a threatening gaze. "How can I do that? What if I spoil it?" Gu Mengmeng did not know whether to laugh or cry. She patted Elvis's shoulder, signaling him to turn around. Chapter 671. The oily barbecued meat gave off a fragrant aroma that whetted one's appetite. Li's culinary skills were well known. Even though his theoretical knowledge came from Gu Mengmeng, the food he made was much better than Gu Mengmeng's culinary skills. This was also the reason why Oriton never hit Li's hands when he fought with him. That pair of hands was related to his meals and must not be careless. "Great messenger!" A faint voice called out from above and Gu Mengmeng's scalp went numb. Could this fellow not see that her 2 males were guarding against him as if he was a thief? Was he here to seek death? Gu Mengmeng turned her head and wanted to pretend that she did not hear anything so that Burke would back off and leave after being snubbed. However, Burke was not as tactful as Gu Mengmeng thought he would be. Not only did he not leave, he even squatted down on one knee and pushed Kanwo towards Gu Mengmeng, saying, "Kanwo was injured during training today. Although it's not serious, it's better for the witch doctor to treat him." Upon hearing Kanwo's name, Gu Mengmeng turned her head abruptly. Only then did she realize that one of Kanwo's claws was flipped outwards. There were several bruises on his body as well as dozens of wounds of various sizes. There was a large piece of skin at the corner of his mouth that was dripping with blood. His eyes were lowered and he did not dare to look at Gu Mengmeng. He looked like a child who had returned home with 0 marks for his parents to sign. Gu Mengmeng's heart twitched violently. She cupped Kanwo's little face and asked with heartache, "Who beat you up to this state?" Kanwo lowered his head and replied in a small voice, I went hunting and met a tiger, but I couldn't beat it." Gu Mengmeng gritted her teeth and raised her hand to give Kanwo a slap. But she could not bear to do it. So she looked up and glared at Burke angrily. "Kanwo acknowledged you as his master. Is this how you take care of your disciple?" Burke did not explain and just looked at Gu Mengmeng quietly, allowing her to vent her anger on him. Kanwu tugged at Gu Mingming's sleeves and explained. Mummy, don't scold Master Burke. Master Burke originally wanted me to hunt rabbits. I was too greedy and arrogant, so I secretly ran far into the tiger's territory. If not for Master Burke's timely rescue, I might not have been able to return today. Gu Mingming also knew that it was wrong to blame Burke, but her son was already so badly injured. She could not bear to even say a few harsh words to him, let alone hit him. Clenching her fists, Gu Mingming said coldly, "Thank you for saving my son once again, but I feel that you are not suitable to be his master. Let his father teach him martial arts in the future." Borg still didn't say anything. He just stood there quietly. But Kanwu lifted his little face and looked at Gu Mingming seriously with his brows furrowed. Mummy, I will only acknowledge the master I choose myself. Elvis retracted his arm and pulled Gu Mingming back into his arms. He looked at Kanwu with disdain and said, "If he falls into my hands, I will definitely not save him today. If you can't even defeat a mere wild beast, what face do you have to live on?" Gu Mingming turned her head and glared at him. Elvis. Chapter 672. Hooking Gu Mingming's chin, Elvis smiled evilly in the dark night. He looked deeply at Gu Mingming and said, "As long as you are happy, it is nothing to raise a little wolf cub. But when he becomes food for the enemy in the future, you are not allowed to be sad or cry." Gu Mingming pursed her lips. It was not that she did not understand the principle of survival of the fittest. There were too many related inheritances in Snake's memories. And wasn't this attack by the stray beasts a living example? Even a baby eagle could not learn to fly if it was raised in a hen's nest. She understood the principle, but Kanwu was her biological son. She could not help but feel heartache for him. Kanwu completely ignored Elvis, completely disregarding his words as wind blowing past his ears, dispersing as soon as it blew past him. With his little hands on Gu Mingming's thighs, Kanwu's azure blue eyes reflected the light from the bonfire. With a determination that did not match his age, he frowned slightly and looked into Gu Mingming's eyes. "Mummy, don't worry. I am not in pain, really not in pain. As a born wolf, this little injury is nothing." Gu Mingming was stunned for a moment before she smiled. Kanwu, this fellow, although he said that he hated Elvis and went against him at every turn, in actual fact, father's influence was still deeply rooted in his heart. That frowning little brows, that pretended to be mature in his eyes, and that phrase, "as a born wolf." If one looked closely, it was not difficult to notice that Kanwu was imitating Elvis in many details. Patting Kanwu's little head, Gu Mingming nodded gently. "My son, you are so brave." Kanwu was stunned. He thought Mummy would be angry. He had challenged the authority of the family and disobeyed Mummy's arrangements. And if he had not run into the battlefield, Mummy would not have chased him into the battlefield to find him. That way, Mummy would not have been agitated to the point of releasing her beast pressure. Till now, she was so weak that she could not even sit properly, but Mummy did not blame him. Not a single word. But before Mummy woke up, he was already prepared to be hung on a tree to die or chased out of the tribe. "Mummy!" Kanwu felt a lump in his throat as he called out in a childish voice. Gu Mingming opened her arms and hugged Kanwu. Patting his back gently, she said, "My son has grown up. He is no longer the little wolf cub who only knows how to hide behind Mummy's back for help after being bullied by Daddy. In the future, Mummy can also rely on you to protect me? My little hero." Kanwu raised his eyes. His azure blue eyes were filled with tears. He nodded firmly and said, "I will always protect my mother." Gu Mingming cupped Kanwu's little head and kissed him on the forehead. "All right, I look forward to it." Kanwu wanted to say something more, but Leah had already grabbed the back of his neck and pulled him out of Gu Mingming's arms. He smiled gently and said, "Kanwu's injuries still have to be dealt with. After all, he is only a half-orc and his recovery ability is still too weak. If he is not dealt with in time, he might suffer for a long time." Gu Mingming nodded. "All right, I'll leave Kanwu to you." Leah carried Kanwu and turned to leave. He only said one sentence. "Don't worry." For some unknown reason, Gu Mengmeng felt a chill down her spine when she heard Li's words. Why did his back view of carrying Canwu look so much like a human trafficker? Chapter 673. Hada carried Qixin to Gu Mengmeng and asked, "Mummy, can we eat with you?" Gu Mengmeng used her elbow to poke Elvis and said softly, "The children are here, stop fooling around." Elvis was displeased and started to dislike these wolf pups even more. With them around, he could not even get close to them. Annoying, he should not have placed them in Gu Mengmeng's stomach in the first place. How good would it be to just throw them on the ground? Seeing Elvis turn his face away and not say a word, Gu Mengmeng then replied, "Hada, of course you can, you are my children and should eat with me." Hada asked again, "Then can Master Burke join too?" Gu Mengmeng was in a difficult position. This type of campfire party at the tribal level was shared by the entire family. Oriton could stay here because he claimed to be Gu Mengmeng's guardian beast, while Ian did not even want to come down to eat from the treetop, so he did not count. It was not a problem for Hada and his brothers to come back to eat, but Burke Jiaoyu walked to Hada's side and squatted down. He hugged his knees with both hands and looked at Gu Mengmeng with his chubby little face. He did not say a word, and Gu Mengmeng's heart melted just from looking at him. And with his posture, not to mention Gu Mengmeng, even Elvis could not resist it. This damn angle and expression was too similar to when Gu Mengmeng had just arrived at St. Nazaire. Jiaoyu tilted his head and said with a troubled expression, "We originally wanted to go to mother-in-law's house for a free meal and Uncle Colin had already agreed. But mother-in-law's eyes were red and tears were dripping down. Looking at her, we don't even have the mood to eat anymore." Gu Mengmeng turned around and saw Sandy stiffening. She had obviously heard Jiaoyu's words and wanted to leave in a hurry, but she stumbled and fell into Colin's arms. "Sandy, what's wrong?" Gu Mengmeng could not move freely now and could only call out to Sandy. Sandy refused to turn back and just buried her face in Colin's arms, saying, "I'm fine, it's just that I did not sleep well these 2 days so my eyes are a little red. I will go back first." Gu Mengmeng knew that something must have happened to Sandy. Didn't Sandy pounce on me the last time she saw me? Even if Colin was not as close to her as before after he failed to rescue her with Elvis and the rest, she had never not taken a glance at her. "How can you say you're fine with such a nasal voice?" Gu Mengmeng frowned and glared at Colin. "Come here, let me take a look." Colin patted Sandy's back lightly and carried her to Gu Mengmeng's side. Now that Colin was no longer the messenger's guard, he did not have the right to share food beside Gu Mengmeng's campfire. Hence, after putting Sandy down, he returned to his own campfire and watched Sandy and Gu Mengmeng's backs silently. Gu Mengmeng pulled Sandy's little hand that was covering her face and pulled it downwards. Only then did she see that her eyes had already turned into 2 peaches from crying, red and swollen. "You are..." Gu Mengmeng's gaze swept towards Sandy's campfire. She understood, but did not have the courage to continue asking. Sandy shook her head and said, "I'm fine. It's just that the bonfire is too choking my eyes. That's why I keep crying. I'm fine, I'm really fine." "Sorry." Gu Mengmeng frowned and lowered her head. Chapter 674. Sandy looked up and followed Gu Mengmeng's gaze. She was stunned for a moment before lowering her head with a bitter smile. "I forgot that you know how to count. Nina had so many partners at the start of spring, you could tell how many were missing with just one glance. I have so few partners at home, how could I hide it from your eyes?" Gu Mengmeng hugged Sandy gently and bit her lower lip, unable to say a word. Sandy shook her head and forced a smile. "You don't have to apologize, the 3 of them died because they were protecting me, it's not your fault. If you want to cry, just cry. Why are you acting tough in front of me?" Gu Mengmeng's heart ached terribly. She felt sorry for this silly girl who was still trying to excuse her even after her partners had died. Sandy bit her lower lip and shook her head. She sniffled before saying, "It's very normal for males to die in battle." I'm not sad at all." Sandy's nasal voice was so thick that even a long sentence would affect her breathing. Gu Mingming frowned and said in a low voice, "Are you afraid that I will blame myself, so you kept turning your back to me, not daring to let me know that you are sad? I will blame myself even more if you force yourself to smile like this. Silly girl, I would rather you scold me or fight me." Sandy, who had been exposed, could no longer keep up her act. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she cried, "I can't beat you," Gu Mingming said. "I will stand still and let you hit me." Sandy cried while saying, "I can't bear to hit you," sob sob sob. When Leah returned, he saw Sandy hugging Gu Mingming and crying like a dog. He casually threw Kanwu aside and snatched Gu Mingming from Sandy's arms. He looked at Elvis with displeasure. "Tisk, you've been hugged so badly, aren't you going to do something about it?" Elvis sighed helplessly and pointed at Sandy. He looked at Leah and asked, "Do you think I can snatch her away?" Leah hugged Gu Mingming in his arms for a long time before tidying her clothes. Then he smiled at Sandy and said, "If only you were a male, then I could tear you apart." Sandy was speechless. Burp. Sandy was so shocked by Lee's smile that she hiccuped. She was so stunned that she even forgot to cry. Gu Mingming patted Lee's chest and said, "Don't be like this, Sandy is already upset enough." Leah covered Gu Mingming's little hand and pressed it against his chest. He looked straight into Gu Mingming's eyes with his long and affectionate eyes and said, "You are mine, how can I let others hug you so casually?" Gu Mingming sighed. Leah and Elvis's jealousy had always been strong, but the difference in their targets was very obvious. In Elvis's eyes, the number one rivals in love were the four little ones represented by Kanwu, and Lee's number one love rival was Sandy. Gu Mingming shrugged helplessly. Regardless of whether it was the four little ones or Sandy, they clearly could not develop any strange feelings for her. She also did not know why these two fellows had to compete with them. Seeing how Leah was about to explode, Gu Mingming wrapped her arms around his neck and kissed him on the cheek. Then she smiled and said, "What about you? When will the roasted meat be ready?" This time, Leah was very pleased with the way he pacified him. He narrowed his eyes and passed Gu Mingming back into Elvis's arms. Exchanging a look with Elvis, he then said in a serious tone, "Guard against fire, thieves and best friends, understand?" Elvis frowned and looked at Sandy warily. Then he nodded at Leah. Chapter 675. Gu Mingming's appearance calmed the anxious hearts of these people. As long as the messenger of the beast deity was safe, the other sacrifices were all honorable. Gu Mingming and Elvis belonged to the powerful upper echelons. Although they were the most seriously injured, they recovered the fastest. The other second-level and third-level orcs were not so lucky. It was not easy for them to recover from the external injuries caused by the stray beasts and the internal injuries caused by Gu Mingming's uncontrollable pressure. Leah simply arranged for them to recuperate on the spot and continue their journey after most of them had recovered. These few days, Burke would bring Kanwu back to eat with everyone at dinner time. Kanwu suffered new and old injuries every day. He was either lame or had a swollen face. Gu Mingming's heart ached to see him like this, but she did not say anything to him to give up. Seeing Kanwu report to her every night that he had become much stronger after entering the heavenly realm, Gu Mingming could do nothing else other than placing pieces of meat into her son's bowl. This morning, the sun was shining brightly. Gu Mingming sat in the tree hole that Leah had dug for her, stroking Lee's large tail. Leah lay on Gu Mingming's knees, closing his eyes in contentment. Elvis leaned against the tree trunk, his gaze lingering on Gu Mingming. It was as gentle as the mottled sunlight, warm and dense. "It's been 7 days and there's actually no next step," Gu Mingming whispered. Lee's fox ears twitched on the top of his head. His lips curved into a smile. "Yeah, it's really not Cole's style." Elvis stretched out his hand and passed a cup of warm water to Gu Mingming. Then, he said, "He mobilized so many people just to send Burke right under our noses? Isn't he afraid that we will just kill him and end things once and for all?" Leah nudged Gu Mingming's cup of water, indicating that she had drunk too little and should drink more. Seeing that her lips were moistened by the water, his gaze also became gentler. Gu Mingming must find Cole if she wants to save Qixin. So he purposely left his scent on Cole so that we can use Cole as a bargaining chip to lure him out and not kill him easily. Gu Mengmeng sighed and said, "Sometimes, I really don't understand why Cole would go through so much trouble to do this. Kill you? Kill me? Or kill Elvis? No matter which one it is, Borg alone can't do it." Leah tapped Gu Mengmeng's little face with his finger and said, "Cole's character has always been sinister. What he seeks is not to kill but to torture. Take me for example. Back then I was as young as an ant. If he wanted to kill me, he could have done it without anyone noticing. But he didn't want me to die. He wanted me to live and watch him take away everything that belonged to me. He wanted me to fall from the high and mighty Ninth Highness into the mud. He enjoyed the humiliation and inner torment of being stepped on by him even though I struggled with all my might." Gu Mengmeng face-bombed. "So Cole is a psychopath?" Leah chuckled and nodded. "Yeah, you can say that. If torturing people is his hobby, then Meng should be safe." Elvis said faintly, "If the person he wants to torture is you or me, then nothing is more lethal than snatching Meng away. If the person he wants to torture is Meng, then he must first let Meng live." Out of topic. Hello, everyone. Chapter 676. Gu Mengmeng followed Elvis's train of thought and said, "Could it be that Cole wants Burke to kidnap me?" Leah didn't seem to mind too much as he looked up at Gu Mengmeng and said, "That might not be the case. To you, Burke is equivalent to those little toys that Cole brought back from outside the tribe. They are just a tool to express his goodwill." Elvis's gaze drifted into the distance and he said, "Or perhaps he will repeat his old tricks." Gu Mengmeng was taken aback for half a second before she sat up abruptly and said, "You mean, to kidnap Kanwu and the rest to threaten me?" Leah patted Gu Mengmeng's shoulder lightly to indicate for her to relax and said, "If that is the case, Burke would not be so close to Kanwu and the rest. Cole is obviously using Burke as bait. If we are so guarded against him, how would he have the chance to strike?" Gu Mengmeng was a little worried. The children had been too close to Burke recently. If Burke wanted to kidnap them, the chances of him succeeding were very high. Elvis placed his large hand on Gu Mengmeng's head and his gaze was deep and calm as he said, "Don't worry, Ian and his men are watching over you. I will not let those few wolf cubs drag you into danger again." Gu Mengmeng then felt a little more at ease and leaned back against the tree hole and said, "Kanwu and the rest have been too close to Burke recently. I just don't feel at ease. Why don't you teach our sons personally? You are so strong, you will definitely teach better than Burke." Elvis squatted down on one knee and held Gu Mengmeng's little hand to kiss her forehead and asked, "Are you sure you want me to go?" Gu Mengmeng looked at Elvis in confusion and asked, "Is there a problem?" Elvis chuckled and said, "Nothing, I am just afraid you will not be able to bear it." Gu Mengmeng had a bad premonition and she tugged at Elvis's arm and asked, "Tell me first, if I hand my sons over to you to train, how will you train him?" Elvis thought about it and said, "Qi is still unconscious and probably doesn't need to train. I will leave him at home temporarily as a stuffed toy for you to play with." Gu Mengmeng felt that his words sounded strange but she could not pinpoint what was strange about it. However, Qi was indeed unable to train in his current state. Any random rabbit could bite him to death. Elvis continued, "Jiaoyu and Leah are on the same path. Their attacks are secondary and strategies are their main focus. Just leave that lad to Leah." Thinking of Jiao, Leah face-bombed and said, "I've always been the one treating people, but this fellow is a pain in the neck, unmoved by force or persuasion. You blinked your eyes and tried to act cute when you were forced into a corner. You also know that I have no resistance against those eyes. Once, I used an animal skin to cover his eyes, and guess what happened next?" Gu Mengmeng burst out laughing because she was there too. Jiaoyu used his little claws to peel off half of his blindfold. Biting his finger, he looked at Leah and asked, "Daddy Leah, are we going to play Polly today?" Lee's hair stood on end because from Jiaoyu's tone to his expression, he had perfectly copied Gu Mengmeng's reaction on the spot. If Gu Mengmeng had really said those words, Leah would have pounced on her without a second word and tied her up before stripping her naked. But it just had to be a fake, and he was Gu Mingming's biological son. Chapter 677. Leah turned back to glare at Gu Mingming. "You're still laughing? What have you been telling the wolf cubs all day long?" Gu Mingming shrugged helplessly. "I won't take the blame for this. These were the things I used to tell Sandy when I told her stories. She didn't understand what they meant, but when we left the wolf pups in Sandy's care during the beauty pageant, she told them as bedtime stories. What can I do? I'm in despair too." Leah sighed and said, "I really can't do anything to Jiaoyu now. You have to teach him yourself." "I can't do it." Elvis snorted coldly. "If I could do anything to him, would I need you to teach me?" Leah looked at Elvis sympathetically. "Huh, so you've also been eaten up by this fellow." Elvis twisted his head. "The last time Gu Mengmeng wanted to talk to Sandy and forbade us from eavesdropping, didn't I bring those 4 fellows for their initial training? The other 3 were thrown into the mud. When it was Jiaoyu's turn, he hugged my leg with a pitiful look. He asked me, 'Are you really going to throw me away?' He looked so much like Xiaomeng. I couldn't even throw him away. In the end," Elvis clenched his fists so hard that they cracked. The pendulum on his head was jumping. "In the end, that fellow was insatiable. He crawled on my head to pee." Gu Mengmeng couldn't hold it in any longer. She snickered. "I thought you couldn't do anything to Kanwu. Turns out Jiaoyu is your biggest headache." Elvis and Leah exchanged glances. Then, they silently turned to look at Gu Mengmeng. They said in unison, "It's all because he inherited your eyes." Gu Mengmeng fiddled with her hair. She smiled brightly and winked at Elvis. "If Leah doesn't want to help you, how do you plan to train the 3 little ones?" Elvis had no other thoughts other than a headache at the mention of his 4 sons. Since the moment they were born, he had been regretting doing such a stupid thing. Those 4 fellows were sent by the beast deity to torture him. But Xiaoming loved them. Sighing, Elvis said, "Throw him directly into the wild wolves and let fate decide his life or death." Gu Mengmeng was taken aback. She scrutinized Elvis's expression, trying to find out if he was joking. No, not at all. This guy was serious. Leah held onto Gu Mengmeng's shoulders before she could open her mouth. His flawlessly handsome face blocked Gu Mengmeng's eyes and he said, "Elvis grew up among the stray beasts and the training he went through was 100 times harder than what he had planned. He knew that you couldn't bear to, so when Kanwo asked him to teach him, Elvis directly rejected him. Wasn't it to erase Kanwo's arrogance? But because, if he were to train, Kanwo would not even be able to survive?" Gu Mengmeng lowered her head and reached out to pull Elvis's arm. Elvis took the opportunity to pull her into his arms. He did not understand where her sadness came from, but he still hugged her with heartache. "I'm just saying. I won't really throw them into the wild wolves. Moreover, even if I am willing to teach them, that kid Kanwu might not be willing to learn from me. Although Borg's methods were a little gentler, it was still safe. Don't worry, it'll be fine." Elvis could only think of this point. Chapter 678. Elvis chuckled and cupped Gu Mengmeng's little face with both hands. "If time could be reversed and I could return to that long period of torture, I would choose to endure more hardships and then use an even stronger version of myself to welcome you, protect you and take care of you." Gu Mengmeng lowered her eyes. "I would rather you be a little weaker and suffer less." Elvis kissed Gu Mengmeng's little face. "If I was a little weaker, I might not have met you alive." "Silly boy." Gu Mengmeng looked up, her eyes filled with heartache. Elvis pinched her little nose. "All right, let's not talk about me. Let's think about Cole's matter first. That fellow, we have to guard against him." Leah nodded and added, "The injured are almost fully recovered. We can't keep staying here and wait for Cole to make his move. If he doesn't make any moves in 3 days, we can only continue our journey to St. Nazaire." Gu Mengmeng nodded. She thought for a moment. "Maybe I should cooperate with Cole's script." Leah glanced sideways at Gu Mengmeng. His expression was rather stern. "What do you want to do?" Gu Mengmeng chuckled. She patted Lee's shoulder. Don't be nervous. I won't mess around like before. Now, I'm an old demon with a mental age of 1,000 years. Leah was tickled by Gu Mingming's words. He tapped her little head. Tell me your plan. We'll go over it. Gu Mingming nodded and told him what she was thinking about. The more Leah and Elvis listened, the tighter their brows furrowed. In the end, Elvis clenched his fists so tightly that cracking sounds could be heard. He furrowed his brows and said, I think it's better for me to kill Burke directly and return to St. Nazir. It's better for me to wait for Cole to strike. Leah nodded. I agree. Gu Mingming face-bombed. How are you going to explain to Kanwu if you kill Burke? Moreover, just like what Leah said, Burke is just a bait thrown out by Cole. He's an innocent person being used. Why take someone's life? The two males understood Gu Mingming too well. They could tell from her expression that she had already made up her mind. Other than sighing, Elvis and Leah could only repeat the scenario over and over again, striving to ensure that nothing went wrong. That night, when Borg brought Kanwu and his brothers back for dinner, Kanwu was covered in wounds again. Gu Mingming hugged Kanwu in her arms and comforted him while listening to him talk about his gains today. Her heart ached for him as she hugged his little face and kissed it. Burke, for your training tomorrow, can you bring me along? Gu Mingming turned around and requested Burke. Burke was taken aback and instinctively looked at Elvis and Leah. Elvis and Leah turned their heads to one side, showing a tacit agreement. Burke could not control the expression on his face. He thought that training Kanwu was the most he could do for Gu Mingming. Dinner time was the happiest and most anticipated time for him, but he never thought that he would have the opportunity to get closer to her. It was like a dream. Gu Mingming watched as Burke's expression kept changing, almost as fast as the changing faces of Sichuan operas. She cleared her throat and asked, Is it inconvenient? Chapter 679. Realizing that he had answered too quickly, Burke cleared his throat and lowered his head, not daring to look into Gu Mingming's eyes. A tinge of pink crept up his ears as he added, I was worried that you would feel heartache if you saw them. Gu Mingming chuckled and said, Children have to grow up eventually. I am willing to do anything for them, but I can't help them grow up. Gu Mingming tilted her head and smiled. Burke only saw it from the corner of his eye and felt as though countless flowers had bloomed in his heart. The entire world seemed to have faded away and only that faint smiling face was left in his eyes. Burke was later brought away by the three little ones. He himself staggered as though his soul had flown away. Leah hugged Gu Mingming jealously in his arms and rested his chin on the top of her head. Looking at Burke walking away, he said unhappily, How long has it been since you spoke to me so gently? This Burke, TSK, just kill him. Gu Mingming pinched Leah and said, He is just a pawn being used. He is already pitiful enough to be embroiled in the dispute between us and Cole. Moreover, he is Kanwu's master after all. Leah snorted heavily through his nose. He reached out to carry Gu Mingming, but Elvis beat him to it. Seeing Gu Mingming being carried in Elvis's arms, Leah felt irritated for no reason. He bared his teeth at Elvis, revealing an angry and aggressive expression. Gu Mingming was taken aback. Elvis had always been the one carrying her around at home. Other than the few days when Elvis was seriously injured and Leah acted as her legs, Elvis had always been her exclusive driver. Leah had never had any objections, so why today? Elvis's expression was stern and his face was extremely black. He pinched Leah's head with his large hand and frowned with anger. Are you trying to challenge my authority as the first partner? Leah was stunned. He looked into Elvis's eyes and his expression froze. After a long while, he finally composed himself and used his hand to brush Elvis's wrist away. Then he rubbed his temples and said, Sorry, I was wrong. Elvis also kept the anger and murderous intent off his face. He did not say a word and just carried Gu Mingming away. Meanwhile, Leah did not chase after them. After walking for a distance, Gu Mingming saw that Elvis still did not look too good, so she asked, Are you still angry? Elvis shook his head. I'm not angry, I'm just a little worried. Lee's condition, is not normal. Gu Mengmeng recalled Li's ferocious expression and nodded. Maybe Cole's matter had annoyed him too much and he was under a lot of pressure, so he could not control his emotions. Don't take it to heart. Elvis sighed and said, I hope so. But Xiao Meng, there's something you need to know. Gu Mengmeng asked with a single syllable. Elvis said, in a family, the first partner's authority is absolute. This was the only way to provide the best living environment for the females. Although we only have 2 males in our family, we cannot break the rules. I can accept your preference for Leah, but I will never allow him to challenge the authority of the first partner. If there is a next time, I won't forgive him so easily. Actually, Gu Mengmeng did not really understand what family authority was. They were a family. Wasn't it better to talk things through? Chapter 680. Gu Mengmeng cupped Elvis's face with both hands and kissed his chin. With a gentle gaze, she said, It's not that serious, don't mind it too much. Elvis straightened Gu Mengmeng's body and said, If the authority of the first partner is challenged, the other family members will become restless and everyone will want to replace her. In this way, the scheming within the family will become more and more intense, followed by deception, bewitchment and even coercion towards females. This kind of thing is a great threat to the family, the tribe and even the entire beast world. Gu Mengmeng was taken aback. She had never thought that the matter would be so serious. But Elvis's worries were not groundless. She did not know what the scheming between males would be like, but she had at least watched Empresses in the Palace and Desire for the Golden Branch. Women could do anything for the position of Empress. Based on the blind love and stubbornness of males towards females in the beast world, they would only be crazier than the women in those television dramas. If all the males in a family were thinking of how to overthrow the first partner and replace her, then the family would fall apart sooner or later. If all the families in a tribe were like that, then the tribe would disappear in the torrent of time without the need for external enemies. If the entire beast world was filled with such families, what kind of Azura scene would that be? If she was not the messenger of the beast deity, perhaps such a situation would not matter. But she was the messenger of the beast deity who was the center of attention. If there was a situation where other partners challenged the first partner in her family, what kind of crazy butterfly effect would be created? Just look at how the 16 valued females, the first beauty of the tribe, imitated her to learn how to be gentle, kind, and interact with others. Gu Mengmeng nodded and said, I know, I will talk to Leah and ask him not to do such things in the future. Elvis kissed Gu Mengmeng's little face and said in a hoarse voice, I don't want to do anything that will make you sad, unless it is for your safety. Gu Mengmeng leaned into Elvis's arms, her little face leaning against his chest. She listened to his heartbeat beating against her heart, finally reaching the same frequency. Chuckling, Gu Mengmeng rubbed against him and said, I know you love me, and I also know Leah won't hurt me. Don't worry, that won't happen. Elvis sighed softly, I hope so. That night, Gu Mengmeng slept in the tree hole. Elvis held her little hand tightly and sat sideways at the edge of the tree hole. He used his chest as her pillow and his tail as her blanket. He secretly released a small amount of beast pressure to chase away all the mosquitoes nearby so that she could sleep more peacefully. That night, Leah did not return. No one knew where he had gone. The next morning, when Gu Mengmeng woke up, her 3 sons were lying obediently by her side. The unconscious Qixin was lying docilely in her arms, as if he was just sleeping. Leah was preparing breakfast, acting as if yesterday's unpleasantness had never happened. Elvis called Burke to one side and instructed him to take care of Gu Mengmeng. This made Gu Mengmeng rather surprised. He actually allowed her to spend time with Burke alone? She thought that he would definitely follow them. Chapter 681. In the dense forest, the trees were so tall that the tops could not be seen. The layers of tree crowns were like overlapping green clouds, blocking out most of the sunlight. Several light beams shone through the gaps between the leaves, adding a mystical aura to the forest, as if there would be elves peeking out from behind the trees at any time, flapping their cicada-like wings and shuttling between the spots of light. Burke carried Gu Mengmeng on his shoulder, then climbed up a tree fork in his human form. Gu Mengmeng estimated that the tree was about 3 meters tall, about 1.5 stories high. Sitting there, she could clearly see the situation under the tree, but unless it was a deliberate attack, the battle below would not affect Gu Mengmeng. Burke sat beside Gu Mengmeng, his expression a little uneasy. His eyes were fixed on the 3 little ones who were already hiding under the tree, but he could not help but sneak a few glances at Gu Mengmeng's reaction. It was Gu Mengmeng's first time participating in the children's hunt. Although she was just a VIP spectator, it did not stop Gu Mengmeng's heart from surging with excitement. It was the same feeling as watching a child participate in a cultural performance. She wanted to shake the stranger beside her and say, "Look, the most handsome boy on stage is my son." Everything was ready. After the 3 little ones exchanged glances, Jiaoyu ran into the depths of the forest alone. Gu Mengmeng frowned, worry written all over her face. Her son was not even a year old. It was always worrying for him to run into such a dangerous place alone. Burke had been observing Gu Mengmeng's reaction. Seeing her frown, he understood her worry and wanted to pat her shoulder, but was afraid that he would be too presumptuous, so he lowered his voice and said, "Don't worry, Jiaoyu is very smart, he will be fine." Well, that was not wrong. She understood the logic, but that did not stop her from worrying. Gu Mengmeng's eyes alternated between Kanwu and Hutta. She realized that her 2 sons' expressions were focused and calm. They were confident in their strategy, and even more confident in their brothers. Gu Mengmeng knew that she had to learn to trust her children. Even if they were not even a year old, they would still be at the age of being pushed in a baby carriage and nibbling on a pacifier in the modern world. But here, they were youths who had already turned into half-beasts. Because of her protective nature, she had already received training later than other children. If she continued to protect her children under her wings like an old hen, how would they survive in the future? Pursing her thin lips into a straight line, Gu Mengmeng grabbed onto the tree branch below her but tightly, fixing herself on the branch to prevent herself from losing control and jumping down, ruining her son's training. Not long after, Gu Mengmeng heard the sound of wild beasts running. She turned her head sharply and indeed saw Jiaoyu's shadow. He was in beast form now and his fur color was not as black as Elvis's. It was the color of the coffee and he looked more like a husky. No matter how much it resembled a pet dog, Gu Mengmeng deeply felt the difference between a dog and a wolf. Chapter 682. Running into the middle of the encirclement, Jiaoyu suddenly braked and turned around, baring his fangs at the pursuing jackal. The jackal did not mind. After all, he was more than twice the size of Jiaoyu. Some saliva dripped down from the corners of his mouth. He had clearly decided that Jiaoyu was just a delicious piece of meat on his plate. But when Kanwu and Hutta slowly walked out of the thicket and surrounded him in a triangular formation, the expression on the jackal's face began to change. It only took a few breaths' time for him to go from a sure win to a panicky one. The jackal started to circle around the encirclement, looking for an opening to break through, but the 3 young ones were clearly in sync, controlling the distance between them perfectly, without a single flaw. And it was also at this time that the jackal realized that his companions were no longer chasing after Jiaoyu with him. Although the 3 young ones were only half-orcs, an orc with his full aura could still win against a wild beast, not to mention 3 against 1? That was simply the level of crushing and hanging him up. She did not know if it was because of the good chemistry between twin brothers, or because of the effects of Burke's recent training. The 3 young ones' attacks were flawless. This was not because Gu Mengmeng was blinded by motherly love. She had Snake's memories in her body, and although she had only casually killed a few stray beasts during the stray beast attack, there was still a lot of battle information in Snake's memories, so her evaluation was very high. Although young, the 3 young ones were already showing their brilliance. Gu Mengmeng focused all her attention on the 3 young ones fighting with the jackal, and could not help but cheer a few times, but to not disturb her son's performance, Gu Mengmeng resisted the urge. If everything went according to plan, the three young ones should be able to end the battle quickly. But perhaps because his mother was watching, Kanwa's performance was a little too aggressive. He was too eager to prove his own growth, so under the circumstances where the time was not ripe, he rashly launched the final attack on the jackal. The jackal was on the brink of death, and in a situation where it would die if it did not fight, it was much more ferocious than usual. Yuan Wu's attack didn't bite the jackal's throat. Instead, the jackal dodged half a step and bit its muscular chest. He realized that he had made a mistake in his attack and wanted to immediately let go and retreat, but the jackal did not give him the chance and bit the back of Kanwa's neck. Gu Mengmeng panicked. If the jackal retracted its teeth, Kanwa's spine would be bitten off and he would die immediately. Just as she was about to jump down to save her son, Borg held her back and stopped her. Before Gu Mengmeng could even glare at Burke, she saw Jiaoyu pouncing behind the jackal and biting the root of his tail. With a snap, the tail was forcefully ripped off. The jackal howled in pain and heaved a sigh of relief. Kanwa took the opportunity to retreat. Shaking his head, he adjusted his rhythm and pounced on the jackal again. He gave up on the throat and pounced on the jackal's back, biting his spine. Gu Mengmeng heaved a sigh of relief. Did this lad learn from Elvis or Leah? An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. Give him a taste of his own medicine. Chapter 683. In the end, Kanwa still managed to bite off the jackal's neck. With his mouth full of blood, he tossed the jackal's head aside and transformed into a human. He looked like a clean 6-year-old boy. Looking up, he stared at Gu Mengmeng with his azure blue eyes, as if he was a child who had scored 80 marks in a test and did not know whether his mother would praise or criticize him. He was at a loss and at a loss. Burke jumped down from the tree and opened his arms to catch Gu Mengmeng. Elvis had instructed him not to let Gu Mengmeng jump down from a high place. Although she had Snake's regenerative abilities and could recover by herself even if she fell, it did not mean that she would not be in pain. Gu Mengmeng was heartless and only had her son in her eyes. So she jumped down without hesitation. Burke caught hold of Gu Mengmeng steadily. He was in a daze when he saw her jump down from the tree. Her trust in him made him feel very happy. Even though she did not even look at him out of the corner of her eyes, he still felt very satisfied. What Burke did not know was that Gu Mengmeng was the legendary boldness of a skilled person. She did not believe that Burke would catch her, but she knew that nothing would happen to her if she jumped down. Flipping down from Burke's body, Gu Mengmeng hugged Kanwa and gave him a big kiss. Kanwa, come, open your mouth and let Mummy see your teeth. Kanwa did not understand and obediently opened his mouth wide for Mummy to check. Gu Mengmeng poked at his clean, white teeth with her finger to ensure that none of them were loose. Then she pushed Kanwa's chin closed and kissed him on his round little face. Our Kanwa's teeth are really good. It's effortless for him to bite through such hard things. Mummy's teeth are not as good as yours. I can only eat softer things. Kanwa reached out his little hand and imitated Gu Mengmeng to touch his own teeth. Then, he stared intently at Gu Mengmeng's smiling face. After hesitating for a moment, he reached out his meaty little hand to poke Gu Mengmeng's front teeth. Mummy's teeth are also very good. They are neat and beautiful. You are a female and do not need to bite hard things. I will leave the best parts of my prey for Mummy to eat. Gu Mengmeng was so touched that she wanted to cry. She hugged Kanwa and kissed him left and right. Even when her son's face turned red, she still refused to let go. Jiaoyu came forward and raised his little face to ask, Mummy, was my performance not great? Why do you only praise Wu? Gu Mengmeng pulled Jiaoyu into her arms and planted a few kisses on his face. How is it not great? You don't even know how excited and nervous I was when I saw you lure that jackal over by yourself. My eyes automatically gave you a 50-cent special effect. Jiaoyu asked, what 50-cent special effect? Gu Mengmeng thought for a while and said, it's like using a kitchen knife to chop an electric wire, with sparks and lightning along the way. He's so handsome. Huda carried Qixin back into his arms and walked in front of Gu Mengmeng in a mature manner. He poked Kanwa's little head and said, your performance today was not perfect. I hope you won't make such a mistake again in the future. Gu Mengmeng was taken aback. Was the post-battle summary already? Shouldn't Borg be the one doing this? What? Was Huda the combat class representative? Chapter 684. Huda did not continue to scold Kanwu. He hugged Qixin with one hand and patted Kanwu's shoulder with the other. I believe you. With that, Huda walked to Gu Mengmeng and handed Qixin over to her. Then he and Jiaoyu carried the jackal towards the water source, probably to clean up their prey. Kanwu walked up to Borg, raised his head and said, Master, let's go as well. The smell of blood here is too strong, it will attract other wild beasts. Besides, Mom doesn't like the smell of blood. Burke nodded, then looked at Gu Mengmeng. Gu Mengmeng was taken aback. She then understood that Burke wanted her to decide where to go next. The status of the female was very high. As long as the female was around, the males didn't even have the right to decide where to eat. Gu Mengmeng placed her hand on Kanwu's shoulder and pulled her son back into her arms. Let's go there. I saw a patch of grass on the way here. It's suitable for a picnic. Burke smiled and nodded, following behind Gu Mengmeng quietly. He felt a kind of blissful trance, just like the colorful bubbles in the summer, so beautiful that it was unreal. He didn't even dare to speak, fearing that the bubble would burst if he did. The everlasting green grass was tender, making people feel relaxed and happy. Gu Mengmeng stretched lazily before sitting on the ground. Kanwu stayed by Gu Mengmeng's side the entire time, his azure blue eyes looking at Gu Mengmeng from time to time. Thinking about how Gu Mengmeng praised him just now, he could not help but feel very happy and satisfied. Burke sat an arm's length away from Gu Mengmeng. He glanced sideways at Gu Mengmeng and her son getting along so easily and happily. His gaze was gentle. He didn't know that females could be like this. When Huda and Jiaoyu returned, they had a jackal's hide and many pieces of meat that were not neatly cut. Gu Mengmeng smiled and opened her arms to welcome her two sons back. Jiaoyu pounced into Gu Mengmeng's arms and looked at her with his deep amber eyes. Mummy, look, this is the beast skin that Huda and I tanned. Gu Mengmeng took over the beast skin and unfolded it to take a look. It was basically unusable. But Gu Mengmeng still smiled gently and said, Yeah, it's really not bad. I think it could be spread over the table as a tablecloth. Or hang it at the door as a curtain, what do you think? Jiaoyu shook his head and said, No. I'm going to save it and put it on the bottom of Mom's bed during the winter. Making the bed is also possible, but why the lowest layer? Gu Mengmeng tilted her head and asked. Jiaoyu chuckled and said, A jackal's skin is not the best and softest, it is uncomfortable when it sticks to the skin. That's why we have to put it on the lowest level to keep it warm. That way we'll be happy. Gu Mengmeng was extremely touched. She hugged her son in her arms and kissed him. Alright, when the time comes, let's place the skin on the lowest layer and sleep on the bed together, alright? Jiaoyu blushed and took a step back, saying, Mother, we have already grown up, we cannot sleep on the same bed with you anymore. You also know that your males are not normal. They might bite us to death. Gu Mengmeng face-bombed. Her own males were actually mentally ill in her son's heart. What should she do? How despairing. Sighing, Gu Mengmeng said, No, they won't do anything that would make me sad. So don't worry, alright? Jiaoyu smiled and kissed Gu Mengmeng's cheek. We also won't do anything that would make things difficult for Mother. So we will learn to be independent and not let your males find excuses to go crazy. Aside from the topic, today was the last day of February. That monthly ticket would expire tomorrow. How about give it to me? Also, we will have a major update in March. I am still waiting for the editor to inform me about the exact time. I am crazily saving chapters, hoping to make my babies happy by then. Chapter 685. Gu Mengmeng and Burke brought the four little ones for a picnic on the grassland. Although there was only one jackal and it was not enough for the wolf pups to fill their stomachs, there was still an adult Burke. This bit of meat was too little for them, but it was hunted by their sons alone, so it was enough to show their sincerity. Burke started a fire and placed the meat the children had prepared on the fire to roast. The few of them got along well, chatting and laughing. In the distance, a black and a white shadow quietly watched the person over there, but they couldn't get any closer. Meng Meng must have known they were here, because she had already turned back to smile at them several times. With Burke's abilities, although they had purposely sealed off their beast pressure, Burke would still sense their aura if they got any closer. Elvis frowned, his gaze deep and cold. How long do you think Meng Meng will have to interact with Burke like this before Cole makes his move? Leah sighed and shook his head. It's hard to say. From afar, Burke delivered a piece of roasted meat to Gu Meng Meng. They were too far away and Gu Meng Meng could not hear what he said, but Gu Meng Meng gladly received the skewer and even smiled at Burke. Leah pinched the tree trunk with his hand and with a crack, he crushed a piece of the tree trunk, leaving a comminuted wound on the body of the tree. The jackal's meat is sour and hard, Meng Meng's stomach will feel uncomfortable if she eats it. Leah said and walked forward, intending to bring Gu Meng Meng back. Elvis held onto Lee's shoulder and pulled him back. This is Meng Meng's decision, we have to obey. Leah turned back and sneered. Aren't you afraid that Burke, who looks so much like you see Jean, will become the third male in our family? Elvis frowned. Looking at how gentle and quiet Gu Meng Meng was beside Burke, his chest felt like it was being blocked by cotton. He could not retract the murderous intent in his eyes, but he still nodded with much difficulty. If Meng Meng likes it, I can accept it. Leah flung Elvis's hand away and said coldly, You can, but I can't. Meng Meng already has the abilities of a beast king, and is no longer an ordinary female who needs many powerful partners to protect her. Therefore, I will not allow another person in our family to compete with me. Never. With that, Leah strode towards Gu Meng Meng. Elvis shot forward and blocked in front of Leah. With a cold face, he said, Neither you nor I have the right to stop Meng Meng from mating with a male she likes. Just as you said, Meng Meng is the messenger of the beast deity, she has the right to get all the males she likes in this world. Leah raised his head and stared at Elvis coldly. Did you hear what Maya said this morning? Elvis frowned and did not reply, but that flash of darkness proved that Lee's guess was right. In the morning, when Burke brought Gu Meng Meng and the 4 little ones away, they happened to pass by Maya's temporary residence. She said to her partner, Burke is coincidentally a wolf beast too. From the looks of it, I thought he was Gu Meng Meng's partner and the father of the little wolves. Waving his tail, Leah said, Are you really willing to let him replace your position by Meng Meng's side? Elvis narrowed his eyes and gave off a dangerous aura. He gritted his teeth and said, He can't replace me. I am Xiao Meng's first partner. Digression. The first greeting in March, babies, good morning. Chapter 686. Leah sneered and said, If you want to hold on to the title of first partner, you can hold on to it yourself. I'm just a partner who climbed up from a beast pet. I don't need that good reputation, I only want Meng Meng. With that, Leah transformed into a fox and found an opening to dash past Elvis's arms, heading straight for Gu Meng Meng. Elvis's brows were tightly furrowed as he watched Leah run off. Actually, Leah was right. He was just as jealous, about to go crazy and wanted to dash over to take Gu Meng Meng away. Moreover, the magnanimity of the first partner did not seem to be that important, or else, how could Leah easily find an opening to create trouble in front of him? Sighing, Elvis followed Leah with large strides, heading towards Gu Meng Meng. Leah had already circled Gu Meng Meng in his arms, his furry large tail replacing Qixuan's position, occupying Gu Meng Meng's embrace. Huda carried Qixuan in his arms and looked helplessly at Leah, who was staring at Burke while being intimate with Gu Meng Meng. He pulled Jiaoyu and Kanwu along helplessly. Let's go eat over there. Jiaoyu and Kanwu looked at Gu Meng Meng helplessly and shook their heads. They did not say a word and followed Huda to the fire pit to start sharing the roasted meat. When Elvis walked over, he saw Leah hugging Gu Meng Meng, kissing and rubbing against her, as if he was replacing the lingering smell of Burke on Gu Meng Meng's body. Burke stood 3 steps away, quietly watching Leah act coquettishly towards Gu Mengmeng and Gu Mengmeng's unprincipled acceptance. He would be lying if he said he was not envious. Elvis took Gu Mengmeng from Lee's arms and turned to look at Burke. "Thank you for taking care of Xiao Meng for the entire morning. We are here to bring her home for lunch." Burke's gaze landed on the roasted meat that Gu Mengmeng had only eaten 2 mouthfuls before Leah dashed out and sent it flying. He felt a little disappointed but did not have the right to stop him. He could only nod without saying a word. Elvis carried Gu Mengmeng and turned to leave. When Leah walked past Burke, he chuckled and said, "The injuries on your back are almost healed. Do you intend to let the wolf pups hunt you and eat ready-made food?" Burke did not say a word and just quietly watched Gu Mengmeng's receding figure. A red glow flashed across Lee's eyes, but it disappeared in an instant. He smiled, a smile like a flower on a high mountain. When Gu Mengmeng had walked far enough and could no longer hear his words, Leah then said, "No matter what his motive is for you to get close to Gu Mengmeng, I will not let you succeed. Keep Kanwu on your good side. If one day he discovers your true colors and falls out with you, I will let you get to know Saint Nazir's witch-doctor Leah again." With that, Leah flew out and chased after Elvis and Gu Mengmeng. "Mengmeng, I stewed a bird for you today." "Mengmeng, did you miss me this morning?" "Mengmeng, call me Daddy." Leah. Burke stood at his original spot, not moving an inch. He quietly watched as Gu Mengmeng disappeared into the horizon, before slowly relaxing his tightly clenched fists. What was that person's purpose? Even Burke himself had no idea what was going on. He could feel that that person was not purely helping him pursue Gu Mengmeng. He must have an ulterior motive. Chapter 687. Back at his tree hole, Leah didn't start cooking. Instead, he laid on Gu Mengmeng's knees and looked up at her. "I don't like Burke. I hate it when he uses Kanwu to get close to you with a face similar to UC Jean's." Gu Mengmeng cupped Lee's face and kissed the tip of his nose. Then, she smiled and said, "It's impossible for Burke and I to be together. You know very well that I'm just acting according to Cole's script, to lure him out and get rid of him." Leah held the back of Gu Mengmeng's head with one hand, not allowing her to escape easily. He deepened the kiss in a domineering and lingering way. His misty eyes were filled with infatuation as he licked his lips, satisfied with the sweetness that belonged to her between his teeth. This made him feel much better, but he could not let go of the matter regarding Burke. Even if we don't follow Cole's script, he will still appear. After the kiss, Leah became much gentler. His voice was soft but firm. "I can't stand the sight of you standing together with Burke. It's too glaring. I won't be able to resist tearing him apart." Gu Mengmeng looked at Leah with an indescribable feeling. Leah had been behaving strangely these few days. He seemed to be very stubborn and jealous. It was hard to understand why he would bare his teeth at Elvis and show an aggressive expression just because he wanted to hug her. After all, he had taken the risk of losing her to push her into Elvis's arms. Gu Mengmeng caressed Lee's face. "Is there something on your mind? I feel that you've been acting weird recently." Leah placed his hand over Gu Mengmeng's. His long and narrow eyes were filled with affection. He gazed at Gu Mengmeng. "Wanting to possess you is all that's on my mind. So, are you going to fulfill my wish?" Gu Mengmeng chuckled. She wrapped her arms around Lee's neck. "You don't have to. I'm yours." Leah chuckled devilishly. He whispered into Gu Mengmeng's left ear. "I mean, monopolize." Gu Mengmeng was taken aback. She instinctively looked at Elvis. She frowned in rebuke. "Leah." Leah smiled awkwardly and leaned back, increasing the distance between them. He sighed softly and said, "Now, you're not even willing to lie to me?" Gu Mengmeng was helpless. She did not know what was wrong with Leah. Why was he fighting with Burke? He was clearly on good terms with Elvis in the past, and he was also able to handle Snake with ease. Leah had never seen Oriton and Ian around her before, so why was Burke having such a special honor that made him so jealous? Leah brushed his hands and said, "It's fine if it's Elvis, but the others can't. If you go out alone with Berg again, I'll dispose of him as a rival in love." Gu Mengmeng felt helpless. Although she felt that she would definitely be able to touch Cole if she followed Burke's lead, but if the men at home really minded, she could only do it. Shrugging his shoulders, he said, all right, don't be so nervous over an unrelated person. If you really don't like him, I won't interact with Burke anymore. We'll think of another way to deal with Cole. Anyway, even if we let him off, he won't let us off. So, there will always be another way. Leah hooked Gu Mingming's chin and kissed her on the lips as a reward. Then, he said gently, good girl. Chapter 688. After giving up on the plan of using Burke to lure Cole out, there was no need for the tribesmen to continue recuperating on the spot. Oriton and Ian arranged everything according to plan, and the next morning, everyone was ready to set off towards St. Nazaire under Gu Mingming's command. Burke would invite Gu Mingming to accompany the three Canwell brothers to hunt with him every morning, but Gu Mingming never agreed. Every time, she would just reply with, you guys go, I'm not going. She did not even have an excuse to avoid it. But even so, Burke still insisted on appearing before Gu Mingming every morning, telling her roughly where he would be training the Canwell brothers that day, what kind of ferocious beasts they would encounter, and what kind of heroic performances the children might have. At the start, Gu Mingming rejected all of them. But to Gu Mingming, participating in the children's progress was not a small temptation. But every time she was almost convinced by Burke and wanted to tag along, Leah would suddenly jump out and pull Gu Mingming into his arms, before baring his fangs at Burke to threaten him. Sometimes he would attack with his claws, and sometimes he would whip Burke with his large tail. Burke was like a block of wood. He did not retaliate or get angry after being hit. Gu Mingming knew that this was a process all males had to go through when wooing a female. Before obtaining the female's approval to become a member of the family, a single male who approached a female's territory would naturally be treated as an intruder and chased away. There could only be three outcomes. Either the wooer was so strong that the original partner could not do anything to him, or the original partner was so strong that the wooer would be chased away or even killed, or the female would be touched and accept the wooer as her partner. Only the three aforementioned scenarios could end this conflict. Burke was a third-level beast like Leah. Although he was not at his peak condition and might not be Lee's match, he was not completely helpless. But he just stood there and let himself be beaten, so that he could put on a submissive attitude so that they could get along better after becoming a family. Gu Mingming sighed. It seemed like Burke was serious about her. With this understanding, whenever Burke came to invite her, Gu Mingming would just avoid him. In order to prevent Leah, who was like fire and water with Burke due to his recent jealousy, from accidentally killing Burke, Gu Mingming would pester Leah to hug her so that Elvis could reject Burke's invitation. The team with 18 females moved as slow as a snail. 5 days later, they finally arrived near St. Nazaire. Tidy up and rest. Elvis carried Gu Mingming in his arms, raised his hand and gave his orders. These 4 simple words sounded like an imperial edict that couldn't be defied. Everyone could only submit to him. Burke walked over again. This was his second time looking for Gu Mingming today. Chapter 689. The concept of a graduation ceremony, Gu Mingming was actually very tempted. The children had been training persistently every day. These few days, they did not even come back for dinner and ate their own prey with Burke. This made Gu Mingming very upset, as if her children had been snatched away. But she did not want to forcefully tie the children to her side. Their intelligence did not match their age. They had the ability to judge and know who they wanted to be with. Leah walked up and grabbed Burke's neck. His long fingernails grew out at a speed visible to the naked eye and pinched into the flesh on Burke's neck. Blood trickled down and dripped onto the ground along Burke's neck. Get lost quietly before I kill you. Burke was not afraid. He looked at Gu Mingming calmly, completely disregarding Lee's threat. His attitude successfully infuriated Leah. Lee's fingers tightened around Burke's throat like an iron clamp, tightening inch by inch. Burke's face was flushed red and his eyes were bloodshot. But he still clenched his fists tightly, resisting his instincts to escape and retaliate. Escaping was equivalent to giving up. As for retaliating, even if Gu Mengmeng accepted him, she would never be able to get along well with Leah in the future. Gu Mengmeng liked Leah so much, he could not offend him. Gu Mengmeng hurriedly jumped down from Elvis's arms and crashed into Lee's. With her back facing Burke, she did not even spare him a glance. She looked up at Leah with her clear eyes and said, "I want a hug." Leah lowered his head and met Gu Mengmeng's coquettish look. His malevolent aura gradually dissipated and his hands slowly returned to his own, transforming into fox claws before reverting back to human hands. The blood stains on them were all gone and they were clean and spotless, as if they had never been stained with blood. Carrying Gu Mengmeng, he turned and left without even giving Burke a glance. After walking for a long distance, so far that even with Gu Mengmeng's hearing, she could not hear any news from her tribesmen. Leah then found a tree to lean against in satisfaction. He circled Gu Mengmeng in his arms and slowly closed his eyes. Lee's large tail was wrapped around Gu Mengmeng's waist. The side of her face was pressed against his chest while his chin rested gently on the top of her head. "I'm losing more and more control over my emotions." Lee's voice was filled with fatigue and a tinge of helplessness as he said, "You are becoming more and more important to me every day. My tolerance towards other males who try to get close to you is getting lower and lower by the day. If this goes on, I really can't guarantee that I won't be able to hold back when Borg comes to invite you again." Gu Mengmeng also felt the recent changes in Leah. Although he no longer showed any aggressive expressions towards Elvis, she could always see Lee's resentful look when Elvis hugged her. That was why she had been unwilling to accept two partners from the start. Not everyone could enjoy the happiness of having multiple partners. Gu Mengmeng knew that she had lost out to Leah and Elvis in the world of relationships. So even though she knew that Leah was not in a good mood recently, she could not criticize him or even abandon him like other females. Chapter 690. Your gentleness will only make me more greedy. Leah hugged Gu Mengmeng even tighter. The tiredness on his face was washed away by his helpless doting towards her. Many a time, it was not that males were not jealous, but because they were afraid of being abandoned, they suppressed their jealousy. If Gu Mengmeng had directly warned him that, "If you continue like this, I will abandon you," perhaps he would not have dared to show such obvious hostility towards Gu Mengmeng's suitors. But what could he do? Gu Mengmeng had never lost her temper at him even once. Only when he was about to lose control and kill someone would she coquettishly bring him away to calm him down. This tacit and even conniving attitude made him so infatuated with her. It was an indescribable sense of superiority, as if telling every suitor of Gu Mengmeng, "As long as I don't die, you will always be my slave." Gu Mengmeng chuckled. "You are jealous because you care about me. Do you want me to lose my temper because of your concern?" Leah asked. "If I really kill Burke, won't you be angry?" Gu Mengmeng thought about it. "I might be a little angry." Leah frowned. "But are you touched by Burke? What happened to your ruthlessness towards me in the past? Why are you so soft-hearted towards Burke?" Gu Mengmeng looked up and poked Lee's head. "What are you saying?" "What I mean is that Burke is a member of Saint Nazir. Didn't you and Elvis set the rule long ago that the people of Saint Nazir will not kill their own people? If you break this rule because I did not give you a sense of security, I might be a little angry at myself." Leah was taken aback. He pulled Gu Mengmeng back into his arms and continued to press his chin against Gu Mengmeng's head. "Gu Mengmeng, after we capture Cole and wake Qixian up, let's go find the kiss of the ocean." Gu Mengmeng froze. She frowned and looked down. Her voice was trembling. "Did he know about the kiss of the ocean?" Leah was so sensitive. How could he not notice Gu Mengmeng's strange behavior? He held Gu Mengmeng's shoulders and looked at her sparkling eyes. "My father once told me that the kiss of the ocean is the essence of the ocean. It can cleanse and contain everything. So I was thinking if we could find it, maybe we could wash Snake's poison off your body so we could mate." Gu Mengmeng nodded stiffly, instinctively avoiding Lee's eyes. Leah lifted Gu Mingming's chin with his well-defined fingers, not allowing her to avoid his gaze. With a probing gaze, he asked, "What are you worried about? Tell me." Gu Mingming bit her lower lip and shook her head. "Nothing." Leah did not speak for a long while and just hugged Gu Mingming in his arms. He sighed and said, "I know you are hiding it, but I don't dare to pursue. What should I do? This feeling seems to be more unbearable than Berg's pursuit of you. I want to know the truth, but I also feel that the truth might torture me to the point of insanity." Gu Mingming did not say anything and just hugged Leah back gently. Until Leah had already fallen asleep, she then said softly, "Don't worry, I won't leave you guys." This sentence made Leah feel as though he was struck by lightning. His entire body froze. Chapter 691. At that time, she said that Snake knew the way to transmigrate back to her original world, but she did not listen. She told Snake not to say it. She said she did not want to know, she did not want to go back, but now she had inherited all of Snake's memories. And in all of these memories, other than the endless loneliness, it also included that method. His mind felt like it was exploding. Leah felt countless thoughts churning in his head, but he suddenly could not grasp anything. Other than hugging Gu Mingming even tighter, he actually had no other way to ensure that she would not leave. After a long while, he stood up shakily and said, "Let's go back, Elvis will be anxious." Gu Mingming did not refute and let Leah carry her back to their original spot. When they returned, Burke had already been sent away by Elvis. Leah placed Gu Mingming back into Elvis's arms. Seeing how Elvis was using one hand to support Gu Mingming's little butt, while Gu Mingming was leaning her head on Elvis's shoulder with a troubled look, Leah felt uneasy for no reason. He grabbed Elvis's hand that was hanging by his side and placed it on Gu Mingming's back, then pressed it down tightly. His eyes were filled with unease as he exhorted, "Hug her tightly, hug her tightly." Elvis did not understand and looked at Leah in confusion, asking, "What's wrong?" These few days, Lee's emotions were not normal, openly and secretly snatching Xiaoming away from him. He would never let go when he could hug her. Why did he push Xiaoming back into his arms today? Leah shook his head and said, "Meng Meng is hungry, I will go hunt." Before Elvis could say anything else, Leah had already transformed into a fox and ran away. It was just hunting. Did he need to transform into his original form? Elvis looked in the direction that Leah disappeared in a daze, but did not say anything else. He just lowered his head to look at Gu Mingming, who was obviously not in a good mood, and asked, "Did you quarrel with Leah?" Gu Mingming shook her head but did not say anything. Elvis patted Gu Mingming's little head lightly and said, "Leah is becoming more and more out of control recently. If he made you angry, he will definitely be more upset than you. How about this? When he comes back, I'll teach him a lesson for you. Don't be so depressed, okay?" Gu Mingming looked up and pursed her lips. After hesitating for a moment, she still opened her mouth and said, "Elvis, ever since I inherited Snake's ability, I have never done that with you. Do you hate me?" Elvis's heart skipped a beat. Gu Mingming remembered that she had inherited Snake's abilities. But what Elvis remembered was the scene where Gu Mingming was almost killed by Ellie because of his incompetence. He would always remember the day when Snake appeared in front of him carrying a badly mutilated Gu Mingming. She was so badly injured that she was on the brink of death, and he could not even stand up to carry her. How weak! Those two words were like a knife that constantly tortured his heart. He had to become stronger in order to protect her. And now, she had become a little poisonous person that he could not touch. Was it not because he was too weak to protect her? Blame her? Why should he blame her? He was thankful that she hadn't abandoned him because of his incompetence. Chapter 692. For some reason, Elvis's heart skipped a beat. If he found the heart of the ocean, he would be able to press Gu Mingming under his body and love her fiercely like before. What an exciting piece of news! He never dared to mention this matter, but it did not mean that he did not desire it. It was just that this desire was always accompanied by a strong sense of guilt, causing him to be intimidated and never mention it again. But Gu Mingming's butt was like a meteorite falling from the sky, directly smashing into Elvis's chest. The instant impact made him unable to feel any pain, but suffocating and painful. He sealed Gu Mingming's lips with a kiss. He did not want to hear her, but they kissed for a long time, lingering with unease. Only after Elvis had sucked all the air out of her lungs did he slowly release her lips. He pressed his forehead against hers lightly and panted deeply. His warm breath landed on the tip of her nose and his blue eyes were filled with desire. His Adam's apple bobbed slightly, and when he opened his mouth again, his voice was full of hoarseness, hitting against her heart with every word. Gu Mingming's eyes were filled with longing and her Adam's apple bobbed slightly. When he opened his mouth again, his voice was full of hoarseness, hitting against her heart with every word. "Xiao Meng, I love you." This was the secret signal that Gu Mingming told Elvis when they were mating. If he needed comfort, companionship, if he needed her, he would tell her, "Xiao Meng, I love you." Her males were just that smart and sensitive. Gu Mingming believed that even though she did not finish her sentence, her two males understood what the kiss of the ocean meant. Although it was equivalent to their blissful sex life, it was also equivalent to activating the gears of fate and pushing the doors of time and space. So, they both chose to become her soul partners. Even if they had no sex for the rest of their lives, they did not want to take the risk of losing her. If there was anything in this world that they did not even have the courage to challenge, it would probably be Gu Mingming. The fire had been burning for a long time. Oriton, who always shared meals with them on time, had already brought back the hunted animals and prepared them. But Leah, who had gone out to hunt, had not returned yet. Gu Mingming was a little worried but did not know what to do. She turned to look at Ian, who was resting on a tree branch with his eyes closed. She hesitated for a moment before saying, "Ian, can I trouble you to help me look for Leah?" Ian lowered his head and looked at Gu Mingming with disdain. "Won't he be back after you twist his ear?" Gu Mingming was stunned for a moment, not understanding what Ian meant. Ian didn't explain further. He impatiently snorted, but still flapped his wings and flew out. Gu Mingming had not been in the kitchen for a long time. After all, Lee's culinary skills were so much better than hers. But Leah was not around today and Oriton was not her male. He had already provided the prey by sharing the meal. There was no reason for him to be the cook. As for Elvis, Gu Mingming felt that his cooking might be even more poisonous than snake venom. Chapter 693. Strangely, it was already sunset but Leah did not return. Ian, who went to look for him, did not return either. Even the three young ones and Burke, who were supposed to report back at this time every day, did not return. The disappearance of these few people caused the original journey to be delayed again. Gu Mingming vaguely felt that something was wrong and felt uneasy. "Hubby, why don't we go take a look?" Gu Mingming looked at Elvis and said. Elvis nodded and carried Gu Mingming in his arms. He did not know what happened to Ian and did not care why Burke and the three young ones did not return. But Lee's absence was a very serious problem. With Lee's personality of wanting nothing more than to stick with Gu Mingming, even if he heard Gu Mingming's butt and escaped, he would not roll back without sorting out his thoughts for the entire afternoon. If Leah left Gu Mingming, he would either be dead or kidnapped. Gu Mingming would be heartbroken no matter which outcome it was. So Elvis's expression was very solemn. He had to find Leah. With that thought, Elvis transformed into his beast form and threw Gu Mingming onto his back. Gu Mingming knew that Elvis's sense of smell and hearing were the most sensitive when he was in his beast form. So without a word, she laid on Elvis's back and let him gallop into the darkness. The wind whistled beside their ears. It was clearly a warm season but Gu Mingming felt a chill. Her fingers seemed to be unable to withstand the blood. Her fingertips were white and cold. They galloped across the horizon under the hazy moonlight. Elvis and Gu Mingming used all their senses to search for even the slightest trace of them in the darkness. And when Elvis and Gu Mingming finally found Leah, they only saw him covered in blood and with bloodshot eyes. He was fully armed with his claws and fangs, looking very much like Naruto Uzumaki in Naruto. Like an Asura crawling out from hell, he trampled all the bones into a red spider lily. He seemed to have discovered Gu Mengmeng and Elvis, but he just stood there and stared at them. He did not move and his eyes were bloodshot. And beside Li's feet, there was a gray wolf with its skin torn and flesh torn, for young ones covered in blood, and an eagle owl with its wings folded in a strange posture. Gu Mengmeng was so shocked that she could not speak. She covered her mouth and did not know what to do. Elvis transformed into his human form and shielded Gu Mengmeng behind him. He frowned, glared and clenched his fists. He gritted his teeth and said, "Xiaoming, I'm sorry. I might have to do something to make you sad." Before Gu Mengmeng could react to what was happening, she saw Elvis charging towards Leah. Without any hesitation, Elvis's claws went straight for Li's heart. But Leah seemed to be prepared for it. With a tilt of his body, he easily dodged Elvis's attack. At the same time, he opened his mouth and bit Elvis's arm with all his might. Elvis felt the pain and retracted his arm with all his might. Then he used his other hand to hit the back of Li's neck. Leah loosened his grip abruptly and Elvis's palm landed directly on his forearm. With a crack, it was the sound of bones breaking. Elvis's hand drooped down like a pendulum, followed by a deafening howl of a wolf. Leah pounced forward and bit Elvis's throat. His eyes shone with a murderous glint, as if he wanted to kill him. Out of topic. On the first day of March, I unexpectedly caved. This is a miraculous coincidence. You have to believe that I did not do it on purpose. Just like that, March was still very beautiful. Chapter 694. No! Gu Mengmeng roared and ran over immediately. Gu Mengmeng successfully attracted Li's attention. He was stunned for half a second before he pushed Elvis away and ran towards Gu Mengmeng. Then he carried Gu Mengmeng on his shoulders and sprinted in the opposite direction. Gu Mengmeng almost vomited from Li's jolts, but she did not stop his craziness. After running for an entire night, when the sun rose the next morning, they were already in an extremely dense forest. Leah gradually slowed down his footsteps and looked around in a daze. With furrowed brows, he placed Gu Mengmeng down from his shoulders. Looking at her pale face, his brows furrowed in heartache. Pursing his lips, Leah could not open his mouth to explain. How could he explain? He started drugging Elvis 7 days ago and made use of Elvis's absolute trust in him to weaken Elvis's body unknowingly so that he could not unleash his 5th-level orc powers last night so that he could steal her away? Her eyesight was so good, she must have clearly seen his despicable face yesterday. Now, what could he say to her? Gu Mengmeng leaned against a huge tree that required 5 to 6 people to hold hands and slowly sat down. She heaved a sigh of relief and looked up at Leah. Smiling, she asked, "Not running anymore?" Leah nodded slightly and did not say a word. He just quietly waited for Gu Mengmeng to question and blame him. "But the next time you want to go on such a long journey, can you turn into your original form and carry me while running? My stomach feels so uncomfortable carrying you on my shoulders." "Leah?" Gu Mengmeng looked up and saw Li's shocked and confused gaze. She chuckled and said, "After running for an entire night, I am hungry and thirsty. Aren't you going to prepare something for me to eat?" Leah opened his mouth, but the words he wanted to say were stuck in his throat. After a few twists and turns, they finally condensed into one. Leah looked around and saw a fruit tree not far away. The fruits on the tree were plump and moist. He quickly walked over and plucked 2 of them. Wiping them on his beastskin skirt, he passed them to Gu Mengmeng and said, "Eat this first to fill your stomach. I will go hunting later and make more delicious food for you." Gu Mengmeng took the fruits and smiled with her eyebrows arched. She said, I didn't expect to be able to eat peaches here." "Peach?" Leah asked softly. Gu Mengmeng nodded and said, "We had this thing at our previous place too, but it was not as big as this one." Gu Mengmeng took a bite. It was moist and the juice was sweet. She squinted her eyes in satisfaction and passed the other peach to Leah. Oh, delicious. Here's one for you. Leah shook his head and just looked at Gu Mengmeng quietly. He was thinking, if he had been a little more selfish back then and let go of all the hatred and revenge earlier, when Meng Meng wanted to give him her one, he would have brought her away like now and hidden her in the deep forest, never letting the messenger of the beast deity appear. Then, would she not have to experience all that pain and torture, and could she have avoided all these years of wandering from place to place? Just like now, she would smile sweetly at a fruit and share one for him to taste. Leah pushed the peach back into Gu Mengmeng's arms, then planted a light kiss on her forehead. Mengmeng, I love you. Mengmeng, I'm sorry. Chapter 695. Leah was taken aback. He shook his head and said, I will never abandon you. Gu Mengmeng nodded in satisfaction. She took another bite of the peach and said, usually, saying sorry after saying, I love you, is to break up with you. If you have no intention of abandoning me, then don't give me such a combination punch or else I will misunderstand. Leah did not expect Gu Mengmeng to have such a reaction. He could not understand her trick at that moment. After hesitating for a long while, Leah asked carefully, Aren't you angry? Gu Mengmeng had already finished the first peach. The peach pit was quite big and Gu Mengmeng kept it in her pocket. Then, she looked up at Leah and said, Why should I be angry? Because you kidnapped me to go on a honeymoon and spend some alone time with me? From the story that Gu Mengmeng told Sandy in the past, Leah understood what a honeymoon was and what it meant to spend some alone time. In a certain sense, it was true. Leah nodded blankly, agreeing with Gu Mengmeng's words. Gu Mengmeng chuckled and patted Lee's shoulder. She said, You were so smug yesterday. Elvis will not let you off easily when we return. It's good that he is the first partner to maintain order in the family. As for me, since I'm out, I'll just enjoy myself. Leah thought that Gu Mengmeng would make a fuss with him, punish him, or even kill him. But he never expected Gu Mengmeng to have such an attitude. Pursing his lips, Leah tried to ask, What if I say we're not going back? Gu Mengmeng chuckled and touched the black wolf mark on her collarbone. She said, You'd better think about how you're going to deal with the aftermath when Elvis comes looking for you. Leah did not say anything. He just kissed Gu Mengmeng's forehead and said, All right, before he comes looking for us, let's go on a honeymoon and enjoy some alone time. Gu Mengmeng nodded and took a big bite of the second peach. Saint Nazir was probably in a mess now. But Gu Mengmeng believed that Leah would not do anything to hurt her. There must be a reason for everything he did. But since he refused to say, she would not ask. What she could do was to give him absolute trust and not repeat the mistake of Nina's incident. There must be no more misunderstandings between them. For the next 3 days, Gu Mengmeng and Leah lived the same life as when they were dating. Every day, Leah would bring Gu Mengmeng around as if they were on a sightseeing tour, accompanying her to watch the stars, the moon, and the sunrise. Hunt for her, cook for her, shelter for her. Gu Mengmeng did not ask what had happened that night or what they were doing now. She also never mentioned returning to Saint Nazir. On the other hand, Leah was immersed in this happiness day after day. The malevolence from that night no longer appeared on his face. It was a quiet and strange night. Gu Mengmeng slept beside the bonfire while Leah used his chest to make a bed for her. His furry large tail covered Gu Mengmeng's body gently. Looking at her sleeping face, he could not help but frown. Crunch, crunch. There was the sound of footsteps stepping on the withered leaves that had fallen to the ground. Step by step, it approached slowly. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.